Chapter 759. The place where Tong Xinyao invited them was a private restaurant called Dong Family. In recent years, private cuisine has been favored by diners. The so-called private cuisine, as the name implies, is a private dish, that is, a specialty dish made by the host in other people's home. Authentic private cuisine usually has no store sign, no fixed menu, and even no full-time waiters. However, the cooking techniques of the dishes are often ancestral, with a unique flavor, and limited supply, which can't be eaten in the restaurants in the market. Of course, the price of high-end private cuisine is very high, and it usually needs to be booked a long time in advance. Some top private restaurants only cook one table of dishes a day, and the reservation is half a year later. It is impossible to book a temporary reservation. However, it was the first time for Tong Xinyao to treat two big bosses. Therefore, Minli, who was advising her, tried her best to find the boss of the Dong family's private home cuisine restaurant and finally got what she wanted. In fact, there are many five-star hotels in the capital, and it doesn't need to be so troublesome to have a meal, but Minli thinks that it can't show Tong Xinyao sincerity, so it is the last choice. This Dong family's private home cuisine restaurant was hidden in a private courtyard on South Street. Green bricks, stone tiles, and white walls surrounded by lush green trees could be seen. The environment was very elegant. Lu Chen praised, "Xinyao is good. You chose a good place." Qin Fei nodded, "Xinyao can book a temporary seat. Xinyao is considerate. She has lived in the capital for a long time and is very familiar with private restaurants. She knows the difficulty of making a temporary appointment." She guessed that Tong Xinyao was lucky to meet a guest who temporarily cancelled a reservation or added a seat. But it is not easy. Tong Xinyao blushed, "I don't know." "It's all thanks to sisterly." Lu Chen and Qin Fei looked at each other and smiled. Both of them liked Tong Xinyao's character very much. Although her family is rich, she has never been spoiled. She is obedient and sensible. Even if she is popular now, she is no different from before. Minli said with a smile, "I don't dare to take credit." They heard that two big stars, Boss Lu and Boss Qin, are coming, so they specially held a special dinner to invite you. Lu Chen couldn't help laughing. She really chose the right person to assign Tong Xinyao as an assistant. The door to the courtyard was tightly shut. Minli went forward and lightly knocked on the lion head door. Not long after, someone opened the door from the inside. The one who opened the door was a chubby, jubilant-looking man with a round head. When he saw Lu Chen and the others standing at the door, his two small eyes immediately narrowed into two slits. He cupped his hands in obeisance and said with a smile, "I heard the magpies singing just now, so I knew that distinguished guests had arrived. It's my honor to have you all visit my little restaurant." His Beijing accent was very smooth, and his smile was sincere and respectful, making people feel very comfortable listening to him. Minli asked, "Are you Mr. Dong?" "That's right," the fatty grinned and said, "You must be Sister Min. This way please." Under his guidance, everyone followed over the threshold and moved forward along the stone path. As the refreshing jasmine fragrance hit their nostrils, they couldn't help but feel refreshed. The first thing that came into view was the elegant and clean courtyard. Several sets of tables, chairs, and pavilions were covered by white gauze curtains. There were many private rooms on the left and right side of the courtyard. All of them were decorated in a combination of Chinese and Western style, elegant and romantic. Lu Chen and the others entered one of the private rooms. The temperature inside was just right. The bowls, chopsticks, fruit plates, and cold plates on the table were also arranged, waiting for them to sit down. The fatty went to prepare the wine and dishes. This kind of private restaurant doesn't order dishes. It only counts the number of people. Everyone will eat what the chef cooks. The taste and standard are absolutely first class, and it is guaranteed that the guests will not be disappointed. If the guests are disappointed, the restaurant naturally can't continue. Although it was Tong Xiniao's treat tonight, Lu Qin was in charge. In addition to inviting Tan Ling, the reporter from People's Music, he also invited Tan Hong and his family. Tan Hong was still on the way, but there were already 6 people here. Tong Xiniao also invited Lu Shi. After a few hours of interviews in the afternoon, Tan Ling seemed to want to talk more. She continued to chat with Lu Qin. Of course, the topic was not as formal as before, but it did not deviate from the original topic. In fact, the topic of pop music and traditional music was enough to write a thick book. From the beginning to the present, it may not be finished even after a few days of chatting. Chen Fei found it interesting and joined in the conversation. Lu Shi told Minli about Tong Xiniao's nationwide publicity tour. The atmosphere in the private room was very warm. Not long after, Tan Hong came with his wife and little daughter. Sister Fei, Tan Hong got married very early. His wife, Song Wan Lu, was also his first girlfriend. The two helped each other in difficult times for more than 20 years. Their deep relationship could be said to be a role model in the circle. They had a son and a daughter together. Tan Hong's son was currently studying abroad. His little daughter, Tan Jiwan, was just 7 years old. She was innocent and lively. When she saw Chen Fei, she immediately rushed up and said, "I missed you so much." "I missed you too." Chen Fei smiled and picked her up and kissed her on her blushing face. Chen Fei and Tan Hong had known each other for many years. He was very familiar with his family and liked this little girl the most. "Brother Tan, sister-in-law," Lu Chen complained to Tan Hong, "it's not easy to invite you. It's all thanks to reporter Tan." Originally, Tan Hong said that he wouldn't come, so it was Tan Ling who settled it. Song Wanlu smiled and said, "He has become an old man who doesn't want to go anywhere." Tan Hong was born in the 1970s. He wasn't very old, but he retired and really stayed away from the entertainment circle. Tan Zhouan shouted, "Yes, Mom said that Dad is the laziest." Everyone couldn't help but laugh. Lu Chen reached out to Tan Zhouan and said, "Little Wan, long time no see. Let Uncle hug you." He knew Tan Hong's family, but he didn't see them much, but he also liked Tan Zhouan very much. "No." Tan Zhouan immediately turned her head and said, "Mom said that girls can't be hugged by boys." The laughter became louder. Lu Chen smiled bitterly and touched his nose, saying, "Your mother is right." He introduced to Tan Hong, "This is Tong Xiniao from my company. She is treating us tonight." Tan Hong nodded and said, "Hello." Tong Xiniao stuttered a little, "Tan. Teacher Tan, nice to meet you." She knew that Tan Hong was coming, but she was really excited when she saw him in person. She couldn't help but bow. Tan Hong smiled and said, "You don't have to be so polite. Let's sit down and talk." So everyone sat down again, including the 9 members of Tan Hong's family. It was really a happy gathering. Chapter 760. The orange light shone through the thin white lampshade and evenly illuminated the entire private room. The high table in the corner smelled of sandalwood, creating a unique atmosphere. The host family served plates of meticulously prepared dishes. Spicy shrimp skin, salad, tricolored steamed eggs, golden hook cucumber strips, shredded chicken and silver sprouts. They were all ordinary home-cooked dishes, but they all looked, smelled, and tasted great. Although Lu Chen wasn't a true foodie, he had a great appetite in front of delicious food. He was in high spirits and shared a pot of the host family's homemade rice wine with Tan Hong. He felt slightly tipsy and satisfied. Chen Fei had been on a diet recently. He clearly had a very standard body size, but he still wanted to lose a few more kilograms. He wanted to eat but didn't dare to eat too much. He looked very conflicted. Tong Xinyao was a true foodie. She enthusiastically asked the teachers not to be polite and to eat until she was full. She also set an example, waving her chopsticks and eating heartily. Min Li couldn't stop her. Sitting next to her was a little foodie. There were 9 osmanthus brown sugar glutinous rice rolls on a plate, and the little girl ate 4 of them. After being scolded by Song Wanlu, she put on a "if you don't let me eat, I'll cry for you to see" attitude, which made people smile. Tan Hong drank a few cups of rice wine but didn't eat much. He had retired to his home and paid great attention to his health. He wouldn't have drunk wine if Lu Qin hadn't invited him today. What was interesting was that Tan Ling and Lu Shi had a good chat. Although it was the first time they had met, they felt like old friends. They drank a cup of wine, their faces flushed, and chatted intimately as if they were sisters. This kind of atmosphere was undoubtedly excellent and could really relax people. Lu Qin thought that this private restaurant was very good. In the future, he could have everyone come here often as a good pastime. As he was thinking, Tan Zhuan, who had eaten and drunk to her heart's content, ran over. She pulled his arm and said, "Big brother Lu Qin, can I ask you for help with something?" The little girl blinked her big eyes, revealing a lovely and pitiful expression, making it hard for anyone to refuse. Lu Qin, however, had a heart of stone. He took out his phone and said, "Then you have to give me a red envelope first. I don't want 1 or 2, and I don't think 1 or 200 is too much. Then we can talk about helping." Tan Zhuan's little face immediately collapsed. She threw herself into Qin Fei Er's arms and cried, "Sister Fei Er, Big brother Lu Qin is bullying me. Please help me." Song Wanlu glared at her daughter. "Stop messing around. Is your butt itching again?" Qin Fei did not budge. "Big sister will help you," she glared at Lu Qin. Lu Qin could only surrender. Okay. Tell me what you want first." Tan Hong's daughter was very eccentric. Every time they met, she would ask for something, and she also liked to play pranks. She was spoiled by her father to the point of being out of control. Well, there was another big sister who was even more spoiled. The little girl immediately smiled and turned around to hug Lu Qin's arm. "My school arranged a solo performance for me at the New Year's Gala. I don't want to sing songs that have been sung by others, so I asked Dad to write me a song." Lu Qin nodded. "That's great. Is there a problem?" "There's a big problem." The little girl frowned and complained. "Do you know what song he wrote for me?" She directly sang, "The little white duck swims across the river, squawking and squawking." After only 2 lines, Tan Zhuan's bitter face turned into a look of disdain. "Big brother Lu Qin, listen to this. How do you think my classmates will look at me if I sing such a childish song on stage?" Lu Qin, the little girl continued to complain. "Come on, I'm already a second-year student, not a kid in kindergarten. Dad actually wrote me such a song. It's so embarrassing." Lu Qin, the people next to them all laughed. Only Tan Hong had a helpless and embarrassed expression. The little girl sighed and continued to complain. "It's really my misfortune to have such a father. Until now, I haven't even submitted the name of my program, so," she shook Lu Qin's arm hard. "Big brother Lu Qin, why don't you write a song for me? I'll send you a red packet of 50, no, 100 yuan. How about that?" It could be seen that the little girl had made up her mind. She, who had never given back anything, actually threw out a red packet of 100 yuan. Lu Qin was deeply moved. "Okay then." The little girl was so happy that she jumped 3 feet high and kissed Lu Qin's face. "Big brother Lu Qin is still the best." Lu Qin was completely bought. "I'll write it for you now." "That's great." The little girl clapped her hands and said, "I brought the guitar and laptop here. They're in the car outside. It turned out that she was prepared. Lu Chen was convinced. Then bring them over. The little girl immediately ran to Tan Hong and ignored his dark face. Dad, give me the car key. Tan Ling smiled and said, Joanne, Aunt will accompany you to get it. Of course, the little girl had no objection. Thank you, Aunt. After getting the car key from the helpless Tan Hong, Tan Ling led the little girl to get the guitar and laptop. Tan Hong smiled bitterly at Lu Chen. My family is unfortunate. He had this daughter at the age of 40, so he spoiled her very much. Now he was reaping what he had sown. Just write a few sentences for her to fool her. Lu Chen smiled. It's not easy to fool primary school students these days. Joanne is too smart. When he was in primary school, he fooled around with his classmates all day and teased female classmates. He was ignorant and didn't know anything. Now, the millennials were born in the era of the surging tide of information. They began to be exposed to all kinds of information from a very young age, so they were often very precocious. For example, Tan Joanne was better at using computers and mobile phones than her father. She had set up a QQ group with her classmates and was proficient in all kinds of internet terms. She was not someone who could be fooled by a few candies. If Tan Hong wrote a duckling, she would really think it was too childish. Chen Fei has said, it's good to be smart. Then you won't be cheated by boys in the future. As she spoke, she glanced at Lu Chen, but her eyes were full of tenderness and sweetness. Song Wanlu sighed. You dote on her more than old Tan. Every time I teach her a lesson, she says she wants to run away from home to find her sister. You might as well take her away. Chen Fei pursed her lips and smiled. I want to, but Big Brother Tan won't bear to. Song Wanlu smiled. If you want, then you and Lu Chen can have one too. Sister-in-law, Chen Fei's pretty face blushed. Song Wanlu said seriously, I'm serious. Women should have children as soon as possible. Giving birth to Joanne was really difficult. My body has not fully recovered until now. She raised her hand. I support you. Mom is looking forward to holding a grandson. Lu Chen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Why did the topic suddenly shift to him and Chen Fei? But there were some things that he had to seriously consider. He looked at Chen Fei and Chen Fei happened to look over. Their eyes met. Their hearts were connected. Chapter 761. As the topic of children was brought up, the atmosphere in the private room became livelier. Other than teasing Lu Chen and Chen Fei, Song Wanlu also talked about her daughter. She knew a lot at such a young age. Being influenced by the modern information society made it difficult for her to educate her daughter. She said to Chen Fei, if you have children in the future, it's best if you have 2 in a row. That way, they can play together and you don't have to work so hard to be a father or a mother. Song Wanlu and Tan Hong had a son and a daughter. Their son was already 20 years old. Of course, he couldn't stay at home to take care of his sister. The age difference was too big, and they didn't have anything in common. As they were chatting, Tan Ling came back with Tan Joanne. Tan Ling was holding a laptop bag and a guitar case in each hand. Tan Joanne skipped behind her and said eagerly, Big Brother Lu Chen, it's up to you now. Lu Chen smiled. Okay, it's up to me now. He took the computer bag from Tan Ling and opened it to take out the laptop. It was already installed with composing software, so he immediately started to write music scores. Everyone's eyes fell on him. They saw Lu Chen's fingers flying as he typed on the keyboard. In less than 10 minutes, he stopped. It's done. So fast. Tan Hong was very surprised. Even if it was an improvisation, this speed was too heaven-defying. However, he thought about it and realized that he was just trying to make his daughter happy. It wouldn't be appropriate to make it too serious. He felt relieved. Let me see, he had been brooding over the nursery rhyme he had worked so hard to compose for his daughter. Therefore, he couldn't help but be curious about what Lu Chen had taken out in 10 minutes. Lu Chen smiled and handed the laptop over. Tan Hong didn't stand on ceremony. He took it and was ready to pick at it to maintain his dignity. It was probably a bit of resentment from being a father. As a result, he was immediately sucked in and stared at the screen for more than 10 minutes. Song Wanlu and Tan Ling looked at each other. Tan Zhuan grew impatient and reached out to grab the laptop. Quick, let me see. This is what Brother Lu Chen wrote for me. Her family had a long history of learning, and she had started learning music when she was 4 or 5 years old. Reading music scores was no problem for her. However, Tan Hong turned off his computer and shook his head. He asked Lu Chen, "This song is from your portfolio, right?" Many songwriters had their own library of works. When they had inspiration, they would write a few lines or a few paragraphs, half a song, or an entire song. When it was necessary, they would rearrange and perfect it. Lu Chen can be said to be unparalleled in the circle in music creation, but no matter how talented he is, it is impossible for him to say that he wants to write a song for you, and then he can create a complete and excellent work in more than 10 minutes. It was normal to draw inspiration from the portfolio or ready-made works. What kind of person was Tan Hong? He was a real big shot in the pop music industry. There was no doubt about his taste in music. Of course, he could distinguish the quality of a song. The problem was that the song Lu Chen took out was not something to coax children. That would be too much. Lu Chen explained, "I remember that Zhuan just had her birthday. This song is my birthday gift to her." Birthday gift? Tan Hong was speechless. Didn't Faye already give it to her? She can't take it anymore, and this is also. Before he finished speaking, Tan Zhuan's eyes were already red. She looked like she was about to cry. The song that she had gotten was going to be erased by her father. Chen Fei looked distressed and couldn't help but complain, "Brother Tan, do we still have to care so much?" Tan Ling also looked at her cousin in confusion. Lu Chen smiled and said to Tan Zhuan, "Zhuan, give me the guitar. I'll teach you how to sing now." The little girl immediately turned from sadness to joy and immediately gave her guitar to Lu Chen. Tan Hong's dissuasion was useless, so he said helplessly, "Oh, you guys just spoil her." Song Wanlu pursed her lips and smiled. When it came to spoiling his daughter, no one could be more spoiled than him. How could he talk about others? Lu Chen let the little girl sit next to him and held the guitar in his arms, gently strumming the strings. Tan Zhuan's guitar is a small children's guitar, and it's a folk style. Although Lu Chen hasn't used it before, he is absolutely top-notch in guitar playing, so he got it in 2 or 3 moves. On the road of life, sweet and bitter, happy and sad, I'm willing to share them all with you. It's hard to avoid falling and waiting, be brave and raise your head. Who wants to hide in a harbor sheltered from the wind, rather have the freedom of the turbulent waves, may the lighthouse in your heart keep watch, let you see through the fog. The song Lu Chen gave Tan Zhuan was called, "The Sunshine Always After the Storm." This song was certainly not a children's song. The lyrics were undoubtedly too mature for a 2 or 3-year-old child. But this song was not a love song, folk song, or rock song. It was inspirational and contained the strength of a firm belief, as well as many beautiful things, but it had nothing to do with age. Lu Chen gave "The Sunshine Always After the Storm" to Tan Zhuan. In fact, it represented his encouragement and expectations for the little girl. Perhaps she could not truly understand the meaning of the lyrics now, but she would definitely understand in the future. Lu Chen wanted this song to accompany her as she grew up, so that she would not be afraid in the face of difficulties and setbacks in the future. The sunshine always after the storm, there is a clear sky above the dark clouds. Cherish all the touching, every hope is in your hands. The sunshine always after the storm, please believe there is a rainbow. Accept all the ups and downs, I will always be around you. In the private room, the sound of the guitar drifted along with Lu Chen's singing. Everyone listened attentively. Some were even moved. Tan Hong suddenly understood. At first, he resisted, because he knew very well that such a song written by Lu Chen would be sold for millions of yuan, and many people would fight for it. It was too expensive as a gift. Since Lu Chen became famous, many singers and stars had invited him to sing, but very few of them really got what they wanted. And those who got his works would not be disappointed. There were even rumors in the circle that a singer who was not short of money was willing to pay 5 million yuan to buy Lu Chen's new work. Tan Hong could definitely afford a few million yuan, but Lu Chen would not want it at all, and it was impossible to talk about money. But now that he heard Lu Chen sing it himself, he understood that this song was not only for Tan Jiuan, but also for himself. He wrote his deepest love for his daughter. This was Lu Chen's repayment for his help and support for Lu Chen. Then what reason did he have to refuse? No. Note, the sunshine always after the storm, lyricist/composer, Chen Zhiming. Chapter 762. On December 22nd, it would be Christmas in 3 days, and the capital ushered in a heavy snow. According to the latest weather forecast, this was also the last snow of 2017. The snow was exceptionally heavy, and the snowflakes flying all over the sky covered the ancient capital with a layer of white coat, which was exceptionally enchanting. For Qinfei Media, a year of hard work has paid off at this season. First of all, You from the Star, produced by Qinfei Media in conjunction with Beijing Television, Shandong Satellite TV and other units, was broadcast and achieved great success. Since its premiere in August, this sci-fi romantic romance drama has broken a series of ratings records in China and South Korea. The highest ratings in China exceeded 10%, and in South Korea, it broke through 50%, becoming a well-deserved phenomenal national drama. In the past 4 months, You from the Star has set off a wave of ratings and public opinion, and its influence has exceeded Autumn in My Heart and Full House of Romance, especially on the internet. The number of fans of the drama is staggering. Apart from the two leading actors, Lu Chen and Qinfei, the popularity of the main supporting roles in the drama has been rising all the way, from obscurity to household names, and they have attracted fans that many artists can't get in their lifetime. Beijing Television, Shandong Satellite TV and KGS TV are also beneficiaries of this craze. They made a lot of money by relying on the episodes and advertisements, which made their peers' eyes bleed. As early as when You was first broadcast, TV stations seeking the rights to rebroadcast came one after another, while Shandong Satellite TV and Beijing Television did not want to give away this fat meat, so they re-signed a contract with Qinfei Media. In addition, the extended re-edit online version of You was bought by QQ Video for 150 million yuan, which also set a new record for TV series webcast copyright transaction. After statistics, this year's TV series, You alone, including the advertising share of the 3 major TV stations, copyright sale, and brand placement advertisements, can bring more than 500 million yuan to Qinfei Media. In addition, the novel version of You went on sale nationwide on the 19th, and set a sales volume of 500,000 copies in 3 days. The film copyright of You is under negotiation and is being fought over by many major film companies. Therefore, in the new year, You will also create a steady stream of income for Qinfei Media. Relying on this popular TV series, Qinfei Media had already stood at the top of the film and television media circle, and the limelight was unparalleled. Apart from Xingyo, Lu Chen and Qinfei had also had a good year. Both of them had earned more than 100 million yuan from their endorsements, and they had secured first and second place in the list of celebrity income in 2017. And the artists signed by Chinfei Media have also performed well. Nirvana has released their debut album, and Tong Xinyao has released her debut album, and they have made gains in different markets. In particular, Tong Xinyao became famous overnight with the help of Original Dream. The 3 songs in the album, which were tailored for her by Lu Chen, were all in the top 10 of the original music chart. Her domination of the chart was a foregone conclusion. It's also interesting to say that Lu Chen and Chen Fei's albums swept the original music chart, forcing the original music chart to change its rules. The same album could only allow 3 songs to be on the chart at the same time. But even so, it couldn't stop Lu Chen's works from continuing to crush all his opponents. Therefore, such a situation can often be seen on the chart, that is, there is no Lu Chen in the top 10, and then clicking on the information of the songs on the chart, you can see the familiar name again. Fans call it the Lu Chen phenomenon, and there is no one who doesn't admire it. When it was snowing in Beijing, Tong Xinyao was promoting in Hangzhou, so she didn't catch up with the company's red envelopes. After the broadcast of You, it happened to be Christmas. In addition, everyone has really worked hard this year, so Lu Shi discussed with Lu Chen and decided to distribute a Christmas red envelope to all employees, and then send a Spring Festival red envelope during the new year. Not only did they send red envelopes, the company also decided to have a holiday from the 23rd. After New Year's Day, they gave a total of 9 days of holiday, so that the employees, who have been busy for a year, could have a comfortable Christmas plus New Year holiday. It was snowing heavily and freezing outside, but the atmosphere in the conference room of Chinfei Media's headquarters was hot and enthusiastic. More than 100 employees crowded the conference room, and everyone had a happy smile on their faces. On the long table in front of them, there were stacks of stuffed red envelopes, which reflected golden and red light under the illumination of the indoor lights. Both Lu Chen and Chen Fei came to the scene in person, and together with Lu Shi, they personally distributed these red envelopes to the hands of each employee. In addition to the generous red envelopes, there was also a live lottery event. A large box was placed in the corner of the conference room, which contained more than 100 special small golden eggs. Everyone lined up to touch the golden eggs, one for each person, and everyone got a prize. The prizes included shopping vouchers, mobile phones, tablets, laptops, SLR cameras, and so on, all piled up next to the box. Among them, the first prize was a double trip to Europe plus 50,000 travel bonus. As the golden eggs were opened one after another, there were cries of surprise one after another. Soon, some employees happily took photos of their bonuses and prizes and posted them on their blogs. Of course, photos of the boss and lady boss were indispensable. The official V of Chinfei Media did not publicize the company's internal event, but it could not stop the employees from proudly exposing themselves, so it soon caused a wave of envious comments and ridicule on the Wave's blog. Someone else's company. The best boss and lady boss in China. What the heck, it's not even the new year yet, and they're already giving out red envelopes. 9 days off. Oh my god, I'm so envious. I just want to ask, is your company still hiring? I'm proficient in the installation and uninstallation of Word, Excel, Access, PowerPoint, Outlook Express, and other software. I'm proficient in the spelling of VB, C++, FoxPro, SQL, Java, and other words. I'm familiar with the operating systems of Win 7, Windows Phone, Linux, Mac, Android, iOS, BlackBerry, and other operating systems. Previous post is too awesome, I've decided to jump ship now. This is so lucky, there are red envelopes during the holidays, and there are so many prizes. Most importantly, I can see Chinfei every day. Ah, let me die. I'm speechless. As a result, many people in the industry and many companies expressed great pressure. Needless to say, the impact of the demonstration was really great. On the same day, many people called Chinfei Media to ask if Chinfei Media was hiring new employees. On the second day of the company's holiday after the red envelopes were distributed, Lu Qin and Chen Fei flew to South Korea. The two would spend this Christmas in Seoul. Chapter 763. Seoul International Airport, Terminal Hall. Jean Shumei and her two classmates squeezed into the crowd and stared nervously at the number 2 international arrival lane. Around her were many reporters with cameras, as well as the TV station's interview crew. However, most of them were like her, fans who spontaneously came to the airport to pick up their idols after receiving the news. Jean Shumei's idol was Lu Qin, the male lead of Autumn in My Heart, Full House of Romance, and You from the Star. He was a superstar from China. She found out about Lu Qin flying to Seoul from FLOO. She did not know which insider was so resourceful as to expose the news on FLOO that Lu Qin and Chen Fei were coming to Korea to participate in the production of KBS TV station, as well as the flight information. FLOO was Korea's largest online social media platform, and Lu Qin was the most popular Chinese star on FLOO. He had won countless fans by relying on 3 urban romance dramas. As a female student at Seoul National University, Jean Shumei could be said to be Lu Qin's most loyal fan. Not only had she watched all of Lu Qin's films and TV series, but she also owned 2 commemorative editions of Lu Qin's albums. Among her classmates, there are also many people who are fascinated by Lu Qin, so today, she easily contacted 2 good friends and came to Seoul International Airport to welcome their idol to South Korea. However, when they arrived at the airport, Jean Shumei realized that they were a little late. The good seats had already been taken by the reporters and other fans. Therefore, she could only stand on tiptoe at the back of the crowd and wait anxiously. All she wanted was to see Lu Qin with her own eyes. As for autographs and photos, she temporarily forgot about them. At that moment, after a 2-hour flight, the China Airlines CT-158 landed steadily at Seoul International Airport. After passing through customs, Lu Qin, Chen Fei, and their assistant had just come out of the passenger passage when they were surrounded by countless reporters and enthusiastic fans. Lu Qin Oppa. The screams of the girls were deafening, accompanied by flashes of light. Although he had been through all kinds of situations, the scene in front of him still gave Lu Qin a fright. He didn't expect that he would be so popular in Korea. There were so many reporters and fans coming to the airport to welcome him. Although Chinfei Media attached great importance to the Korean market, and the Korean version of Star was broadcast at the same time as the domestic version, the company, which had just started, mainly focused on the domestic market. The Korean market basically depended on the cooperation with KGS and SPG. This time, Chinfei Media did not do any publicity for their trip to Korea at the invitation of KBS, nor did they inform KGS and SPG. It could be said that they were very low-key. The result was truly shocking. Fortunately, there were security personnel at the airport to maintain order, so even though the scene was a little scary, it did not cause any chaos. Lu Qin saw a support board with his Chinese or Korean name written on it in the crowd, as well as his posters. Interestingly, most of the fans who came to pick him up were girls, so most of them were his fans. However, seeing such a scene, Chen Fei hesitated for a moment and wanted to let go of Lu Qin's hand. She knew that fans were very sensitive and fragile. Although everyone knew that the two were a couple, these Korean teenage fans might not be able to accept seeing their idols showing off their love in front of their eyes. Therefore, it was better not to stimulate him if possible, lest any accidents happen. However, Lu Qin held her hand tightly, and at the same time, smiled and waved at the enthusiastic fans. As it turned out, Chen Fei was obviously thinking too much. With the brainwashing of the 3 TV series, Autumn in My Blood, Full House of Romance, and You from the Star, the two had long become the most perfect idol couple in the hearts of Korean fans. Although these girls liked Lu Qin to the extent that they were obsessed with him, they were not unable to accept the relationship between the two. As for the dog food, it had long been fed by the 3 TV series, especially You from the Star, which had just finished airing, and its influence in Korea was unprecedented. Lovers on screen, lovers in reality, Lu Chen and Chin Fei were already an inseparable combination in the hearts of fans in China and Korea. The screams of the fans became even louder, and there was a commotion in the crowded crowd. The airport security personnel were busy as if they were facing a formidable enemy. Lu Chen Oppa, Jin Xiumei was very lucky to squeeze to the front. Looking at Lu Chen, who was only a few steps away, her heart was about to jump out of her chest. She desperately stretched out her hand and shouted in Chinese, "Can you give me an autograph?" Jin Xiumei majored in Chinese at National University, and her Chinese was quite good. She immediately stood out from the crowd of fans around her. Lu Chen happened to pass by and heard her words, so he stopped. He took the autograph pen and CD case from Jin Xiumei's outstretched arm and found that the latter was actually a limited edition collection of You Who Sat Next to Me, released in China. He couldn't help but smile and asked, "Hello, what's your name?" Jin Xiumei. Jin Xiumei never dreamed that Lu Chen would really stop for her. Her face suddenly turned red, and she stuttered in Chinese, "My name is..." Jin Xiumei, Xiao as in delicate, Mei, as in beautiful. Lu Chen smiled and said, "Your Chinese is really good. Where did you buy this record?" As he asked, he quickly wrote a blessing on the CD case. Jin Xiumei swallowed and said, "I asked my classmate in China to help me order it." After Lu Chen signed his name, he returned the CD case and the autograph pen to the other party. "Thank you for your support." As soon as Jin Xiumei took it, she was immediately pushed to the back by the people around her. In a panic, she didn't know who stepped on her foot, but she suddenly woke up and hurriedly continued to step back. If she didn't step back, it would be terrible if she was pushed to the ground. Xiumei. As a result, before she could stand firm, 2 students who had just been separated by the crowd surrounded her and stared at the autograph CD in her hand. "You got Lu Chen Oppa's autograph?" Jin Xiumei nodded. Suddenly, she had a strong vigilance in her heart. She immediately held the CD case tightly in her arms and said, "This is mine. Don't have any bad ideas." If anyone wanted to snatch it from her, she would fall out with that person. On this side, Lu Chen signed for several fans. Seeing that the situation was getting out of control, he was escorted by several security personnel and hurriedly left the terminal with Chin Fei and his assistant. Out of the hall, the group quickly boarded the car that had been waiting outside and left the reporters. Chapter 764. The people who came to the airport to welcome Lu Chen and Chin Fei were not only the staff sent by KBS. Lu Qingxian and his girlfriend, Song Jiaojin, also drove them to the hotel where they were staying. The hotel was also arranged by Lu Qingxian. It was the Shilla Hotel in the city center. The Shilla Hotel was the top hotel in South Korea. It was located in the central area of the capital city. It was a 5-star hotel belonging to the Samsung Group. As a hotel brand representing South Korea, it had hosted leaders from all over the world, as well as celebrities and stars in politics, diplomacy, economy, culture, sports, and entertainment. Staying at the Shilla Hotel was undoubtedly a symbol of status. According to the plan, Lu Chen and Chin Fei would participate in the KBS program recording on December 29th. Today was the 24th, and there were still 5 days left. They were actually on vacation. There were many Catholics and Christians in South Korea. As the first major festival of the 2 major religions, the capital, Seoul, was particularly lively at Christmas time. The government also listed Christmas as a legal holiday. In recent years, the South Korean government had vigorously developed tourism and included Christmas in the scope of publicity. On Christmas Day, there were a series of promotional activities in shopping areas such as Myeongdong and Gangnam, which attracted a large number of tourists to sightsee and shop. After the broadcast of You from the Star, Chunfei Media gave all employees a holiday, so Lu Chen took advantage of this opportunity to take Chunfei to South Korea for a holiday shopping. Attending Song Jiajin's program was actually incidental. When they settled down at the hotel, Lu Qingxian warmly invited the two to dinner. Lu Chen declined and said, "Mr. Lu is too polite. Today is Christmas Eve, so you should spend it with your girlfriend. We'll eat another day. Anyway, there is still a lot of time." Lu Qingxian didn't force it. He smiled and said, "Well, let's get together another day. You two have a good time. Please call me if you need anything." Although he left with Song Jiajin, he left his car behind and arranged for a driver to make it convenient for the two of them to travel. "This Lu Qingxian is really good," Chen Fei praised. "If he develops in the entertainment industry, he will definitely become a top star." Character determined fate. Lu Qingxian's personal qualities were very high. His appearance was handsome and generous. He was magnanimous but not meticulous. If he really mingled in the circle, it would be easy for him to get a large number of fans. However, he was born into a wealthy family, so it was impossible for him to be interested in this industry. Although the Korean entertainment industry was extremely developed, the status of celebrities was actually quite low. Therefore, Chen Fei was just joking. Lu Chen hugged her and said, "Aren't you afraid that I'll be jealous if you praise him like that?" Chen Fei glanced at him coquettishly and giggled, "I like it when you're jealous, aw." Before she could finish her sentence, Lu Chen picked her up by the waist and strode to the bathroom. After taking a fragrant bath, they returned to the big bed in the bedroom. Chen Fei leaned lazily in Lu Chen's arms, enjoying the aftertaste of passion. After a few minutes, she suddenly sat up, completely ignoring her exposed body. Lu Chen was surprised. "What's wrong?" Chen Fei put on her underwear and said, "Of course we're going out. We're going shopping." Lu Chen was speechless. "Aren't you tired?" "I'm not tired." When it came to shopping, Chen Fei's enthusiasm was not much different from that of other women. Her answer was very simple. Of course, her reason was very strong. "I haven't had a good time shopping for half a year. I've made so much money. It would be a shame if I don't spend some." How could Lu Chen have any objections? So they called their assistant, called the driver to arrange a car, and went shopping in Myeongdong. Myeongdong was the most famous shopping area in Seoul. The most concentrated category of consumption was Korean local brands of cosmetics. The grade was mainly above the middle level. Skin Food, Miss Shaw, Olive Young, and so on had opened flagship stores here, attracting a large number of tourists. In particular, domestic tourist groups who came to Seoul had to come to Myeongdong. Therefore, slightly larger stores were equipped with shopping guides in Chinese, which was very convenient. In fact, compared to Myeongdong, the grade in Gangnam was higher, featuring international brands. Of course, Chen Fei was not short of money. She usually didn't use Korean brands of cosmetics, but she liked the shopping atmosphere in Myeongdong very much. Today was Christmas Eve, and it happened to be Sunday, so Myeongdong was particularly lively. All the shops along the street had advertised discounts and tried their best to attract customers. Although they were in Korea, the two also disguised themselves, wearing sunglasses and masks to avoid attracting onlookers. Relying on the three popular TV series on KGS TV station, Lu Chen and Chen Fei can be said to be the most popular domestic stars in South Korea. The number of fans even overshadowed many of South Korea's local A-list artists. If the two didn't disguise themselves, they would probably be surrounded in a few steps. This time, Chen Fei was satisfied with her shopping addiction. She spent the entire afternoon and evening shopping. Anyway, it was just buying, buying, buying. If she saw something she liked, she would buy it. If she didn't use it herself, she would give it to others. Fortunately, Lu Chen had brought his 2 assistants along. In addition, there was a chauffeur and a car. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't even be able to carry the shopping bags. Even so, they almost broke their legs following Chen Feier. It wasn't until night time that the 2 returned to the hotel with shopping bags of all sizes. The next day, they went to watch the Christmas parade on the streets of Seoul. They didn't have enough fun until the 27th. On the morning of the 28th, Lu Chen and Chen Feier attended an international brand endorsement event together. On the morning of the 29th, the 2 accepted an interview with KBS TV. In the afternoon, they participated in the recording of KBS's new star show. After the recording, the 2 had dinner with Lu Qingxian and Song Jiajin. According to the original plan, the 2 would stay in Seoul for another day to meet with the higher-ups of KGS TV and SYG before returning to Beijing on the 31st. However, unexpectedly, on the night of the 29th, which was the day Lu Chen finished recording the new star show, Li Zhiqing, a Korean Taekwondo master with a 9-dan black belt and 2 Olympic gold medals, sent him a challenge on his FLO account, which had more than 10 million fans. Li Zhiqing was a household name in Korea. After winning his first Olympic gold medal, he was regarded as a hero by many Koreans. He was extremely popular in Korea. Therefore, when his challenge was posted, it immediately caused a huge sensation. It quickly became the hottest topic on the internet and attracted the attention of the Korean media. Chapter 765. Taekwondo originated from the Korean peninsula. It evolved from Taekwondo and Warangdo during the Three Kingdoms period. It was a popular martial art in Korea. Before the last century, there was no Taekwondo in Korea. Korean martial arts were mainly karate, tang hand, and a small number of folk Taekwondo. During the Japanese occupation, a large number of young Korean students went to Japan to study and received systematic karate training from the Matsuro Dojo. After returning home, they began to establish dojos to teach students. After the defeat of Japan, Korea gained national independence, and a large number of karate and tang art dojos emerged. In the early days, Korean karate practitioners combined the traditional national martial arts of Taekwondo with karate, calling it tang art. The earliest Korean dojos appeared, and they were later known as the Nine Paths dojos. The name Taekwondo was created in 1955 by General Choi Hongshi of Korea. He studied karate in Japan and played a vital role in the establishment, inheritance, and development of Taekwondo. Li Zhiqing was one of Choi Hongshi's proudest disciples. Li Zhiqing began learning Taekwondo at the age of 5. He won the national championship at the age of 17. At the age of 21, he participated in the Olympic Games and won the gold medal in the 68 kilograms category. 4 years later, he successfully defended his title. His contribution to Taekwondo was not only the 2 Olympic gold medals, but also the creation of a new school outside of the Nine Paths dojos. The dojos he established were not inferior to the Nine Paths dojos in terms of strength and influence. They were even more famous among young Koreans. Li Zhiqing not only inherited Taekwondo, but also had his own unique innovation. The school he created absorbed the essence of martial arts such as kickboxing, grappling, sanda, and so on. It was more inclined to actual combat. One day 5 years ago, when Li Zhiqing came out of the dojo, he happened to encounter 3 robbers who were robbing passers-by with knives. He rushed forward with his bare hands and knocked down all the tall and strong robbers in just 10 seconds. The scene was captured by the cameras in the nearby shops and then uploaded to the internet, causing a great sensation. Later, the Korean president received Li Zhiqing and awarded him a medal. Because of this, Li Zhiqing was regarded as a hero by many Koreans. "It's my fault, Mr. Liu. In the business suite of the Shilla Hotel, Yu Qingxian apologized to Lu Qin. "I'm really sorry." Lu Qin said with a smile, "How can you be blamed for this? It's not a big deal." Last night, Li Zhiqing had issued a challenge on FLOO. This morning, Lu Qingxian had brought Song Jiajin to the hotel to apologize in person. Without his insistence, Lu Qin would not have to face this problem. It was indeed troublesome. Although Li Zhiqing's letter of challenge on FLOO was carefully worded, it couldn't hide the aggressiveness. Coupled with his special identity, it could be said to have forced Lu Qin into a corner to a large extent. This was not the first time Lu Qin had been challenged. After the UD-725 flight incident, as well as the video of Lu Qin demonstrating the motion capture system at Blue Sky Studio, Chinese Kung Fu became famous all over the world, and Jack Ross, who has won the AFS middleweight gold belt 3 times in a row, challenged him. It was just that Jack Ross's attitude at the time was not very serious, and Lu Qin directly expressed that he was not interested. Therefore, other than a small number of media making a fuss, the so-called challenge was left unresolved. In addition to Jack Ross, there were also many experts in kickboxing and Sande in China who wanted to spar with Lu Qin. Some were purely hyping up, so Lu Qin could not be bothered to respond. But now, Li Zhiqing's challenge was extraordinary. First of all, as the challenger, his identity was very special. He was a representative figure of Korean Taekwondo. His words carried a lot of weight and were not a joke. In this challenge letter, Li Zhiqing proposed that Lu Qin could decide the time and location of the duel, whether it was in Korea or China. He wanted to use this duel to prove that the Neo-Taekwondo he created was superior to China Kung Fu. Now that the news had already spread and caused a sensation on the Korean internet, more media would definitely pay attention to it. It was believed that it would soon spread back to China. Under such circumstances, if Lu Qin rejected Li Zhiqing's challenge, the consequences could be imagined. Not to mention anything else, there would definitely be many fans who would be disappointed, and there would definitely be people who would jump out to ridicule and say strange things. Some media would definitely take the opportunity to stir up trouble. At the moment, Lu Qin was really too popular. God knew how many people were jealous. Now that he was in Korea, it could be said that Li Zhiqing had chosen an excellent time. Lu Qingxian happened to know some inside information. Actually, it's not that simple. Li Zhiqing's purpose of challenging Lu Qin was not simple. After he established the martial arts dojo, he tried his best to promote the martial arts dojo style, with the intention of establishing a new Taekwondo alliance, and even challenging the ITF, which was established by his mentor, which was the International Taekwondo Alliance. However, the influence of the International Taekwondo Alliance was too great. There were more than 120 countries and regional associations around the world. It was not something that Li Zhiqing could easily shake. Therefore, the purpose of his challenge to Lu Qin was clear. "So that's how it is," Lu Qin nodded. He thought for a while and said, "Thank you, Mr. Lu, for the information. I will handle this matter well." Lu Qingxian smiled bitterly. "Actually, I know Mr. Li Zhiqing, and I also admire his character. If possible, I hope that Mr. Lu Qin and Mr. Li Zhiqing can become friends, and not opponents." Lu Qin smiled faintly and did not say anything else. After sending Lu Qingxian and Song Jiajin off, Chen Fei asked worriedly, "What are you going to do?" She also realized the trouble that this incident had brought to Lu Qin. Lu Qin smiled. "Don't worry about it first. Let's finish our own matters first." Today, he and Chen Fei still had to meet with the higher-ups of KGS TV station and SYG. That was the arranged work. Chen Fei asked again, then, "Are we going back to Beijing tomorrow?" The return flight was booked for tomorrow afternoon. Lu Qin thought for a while and said, "Let's talk about it at night." No matter what was going on outside, he would not panic. He would still do what he had to do. On the 30th, Lu Qin and Qin Fei visited the headquarters of KGS TV station and SYG according to their scheduled itinerary. They met and discussed with the higher-ups of both companies, mainly about the future business expansion of Qin Fei Media in Korea. Because both parties had a very good cooperation, KGS TV station and SYG received the two very warmly. The reception was also of the highest standard. They even had a banquet together at the Shilla Hotel in the evening. At the same time, the incident of Li Zhiqing challenging Lu Qin further intensified, causing a huge reaction on the domestic internet. It could be said that it was a stone that caused 1,000 ripples. Chapter 766. The first to break the news was a small blogger on Waves, Han Hanshi. Han Hanshi had more than 200,000 fans. The main content of his blog included Korean travel, shopping, food, and study guides. At the same time, he also reposted a large number of interesting anecdotes from FLOO. In just 10 minutes after Li Zhiqing issued a challenge to Lu Qin on FLOO, Han Hanshi reposted the news on Waves. However, Han Hanshi did not have many fans. Coupled with the large number of reposts he posted, it did not attract much attention from netizens at first. There were very few reposts and comments. Moreover, the comments were mainly puzzled and curious. Really? Who is Li Zhiqing? I've never heard of him. He's deliberately trying to gain popularity, right? I don't think Lu Qin will pay attention to him. What a joke. Faced with doubts and inquiries, Han Hanshi quickly posted a screenshot of FLOO on his blog. At the same time, he introduced Li Zhiqing's identity and background in detail. Although Li Zhiqing was regarded as a hero by many Koreans, he was not very famous in China. Those who knew him were basically Taekwondo enthusiasts. After Han Hanshi's blog, many netizens realized that Li Zhiqing's identity was not ordinary. Moreover, his challenge was serious and definitely not a joke. At this time, Li Zhiqing's challenge had already spread on Korean online media. Some media reporters even called Li Zhiqing himself and received confirmation from him. Han Hanshi knew that this was a hot topic that could not be missed. Moreover, he was the one who first discovered it. Therefore, he spared no effort in promoting it. He continuously reposted relevant news and news reports to his Waves blog. Soon, it attracted the attention of more and more netizens, especially Lu Qin's fans. On the morning of the 30th, the official account of Lu Qin's fan club reposted Han Hanshi's blog post. This time, tens of thousands of Lu Qin's fans went crazy. Challenge my Qin. Has he gone crazy from wanting to be famous? Don't say that. Li Zhiqing is pretty good. He won 2 Olympic gold medals. Tisk. Can he be better than my Qin? He'll be looking for his teeth on the floor. Don't be too sure. I've learned Taekwondo. My coach admires Li Zhiqing. I just searched. Li Zhiqing is a practical fighter in Taekwondo. Do you think Lu Qin will accept the challenge? I don't think so. Of course, fans unconditionally support Lu Qin. Many people think that Li Zhiqing is obviously trying to gain popularity and suggest that Lu Qin doesn't need to pay attention to him. But some people think that Lu Qin should accept the challenge, because it's related to the honor of Chinese Kung Fu. The term Chinese Kung Fu was coined by Lu Qin, and it was also spread all over the world because of him. In the eyes of the Chinese people, Chinese Kung Fu was undoubtedly Chinese martial arts. Taekwondo can be said to be the national martial art of Korea. As the representative of Korean Taekwondo, Li Zhiqing issued a formal challenge to Lu Qin. If Lu Qin did not accept the challenge, it would undoubtedly cause great harm to his reputation. After the UD-725 flight incident, in the eyes of many people, Lu Qin was no longer just a star in the entertainment industry, but an outstanding representative of Chinese. Such a high evaluation has even been officially recognized. It was precisely because of this that Li Ziqing's challenge was very different from Jack Ross. However, there were also many fans who thought that Lu Chen didn't need to rely on competing with Li Ziqing to prove himself. The two had different foundations and different professions. This kind of competition was unfair. Whether they should accept it or not, Lu Chen's fans debated endlessly on the internet, and then soon a number of online media got involved and quickly heated up the topic. QQ, Li Ziqing challenged Lu Chen. Who is the strongest martial artist? Waves, Li Ziqing, the two-time Olympic gold medalist, challenged Lu Chen on FLOO last night. Baisuo, Taekwondo vs Kung Fu, who won and who lost? EasyNet, Korea's Taekwondo #1 issued a challenge to Lu Chen. Lu Chen didn't respond for the time being. These bold and black titles not only appeared in the entertainment section, but were even hung on the homepage of the website. With these big sects adding fuel to the fire, more and more people joined the debate. There was always no shortage of people who wanted to see the world in chaos on the internet, and there were also many people with ulterior motives. Whether it was intentional or not, the view that Lu Chen should accept the challenge gradually prevailed. The reasons were naturally very righteous. Some said that Lu Chen couldn't lose the face of his countrymen. Some said that Lu Chen could easily crush Li Ziqing and didn't need to be afraid. Some said that if Lu Chen refused, then he didn't deserve his reputation. In short, anyone with a discerning eye could sense that there was a force stirring up trouble behind the scenes, stirring up the emotions of the netizens, holding Lu Chen up high, so that Lu Chen had no room to maneuver or retreat. Their goal was very simple. They wanted Lu Chen to fight Li Ziqing. If he won, it would be because Lu Chen had real ability. They had foresight. If Lu Chen lost, then there would be a good show to watch. The matter fermented very quickly. Although traditional media such as television and newspapers did not intervene, the public opinion formed on the internet could not be underestimated. Lu Shi called Lu Chen many times from Beijing. However, when Lu Chen really discussed this matter with his sister, it was only after he had finished the dinner with the senior executives of KGS and SYG and returned to his room. What do you plan to do? His sister was in a bad mood. Of course, she didn't blame Lu Chen for causing trouble. Instead, she was angry at some people for stirring up trouble and using this as an excuse to force Lu Chen to abdicate. Lu Chen already knew the repercussions of this matter in the country. He wasn't angry. Instead, he smiled and said, "If that's the case, then I'll do as they wish. I'll accept Li Ziqing's challenge." Lu Chen said it casually, as if he had agreed to eat with someone or go shopping. Lu Shi was shocked when she heard this. "You really plan to fight Li Ziqing? This is not a joke." His sister, of course, did not approve of Lu Chen's duel with Li Ziqing. As the saying went, fists and feet had no eyes in an arena fight. If he were to get hurt, regardless of whether he won or lost, he would suffer a great loss. Moreover, Lu Chen was a celebrity, not a professional player. Rejecting Li Ziqing was completely fair and square. As for what others said, let them say it. Lu Chen did not rely on their words to live. Don't be impulsive. Think carefully. Has Fei agreed? Lu Chen said, "Sister, I'm not impulsive. I've thought it through very clearly." Fei has also agreed. Today's entire day was enough for Lu Chen to make a decision after careful consideration, that was to accept the challenge. Chapter 767. Accept the challenge. Although Lu Chen had countless reasons to reject Li Ziqing's challenge, as many fans said, he didn't need a fight to prove himself. However, he had his own ideas. After You from the Star was broadcasted, Lu Chen's urban trilogy has been completed, so in the foreseeable future, he will not make any more dramas of the same type, and will fully turn to creating martial arts big IP. After You from the Star, it was time for the smiling, the proud wanderer. The smiling, proud wanderer would first shoot a blockbuster movie, and it would shoot 3 movies at once. After that, it would shoot a TV series. After that, The Legend of the Condor Heroes, The Return of the Condor Heroes, The Heaven Sword and Dragon Saber, etc. Lu Chen's ambition wasn't limited to making wuxia movies and TV series. He also wanted to promote his wuxia culture to the world through the development of games, comics, and other copyrights. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. His plan was huge. Filming the smiling, the proud wanderer was the first and most important step. Therefore, he couldn't afford to fail. Lu Chen already had a plan for Qinfei Media to promote the movie. If he wanted to hype it up, then Li Ziqing's challenge was undoubtedly a great hype point. Li Ziqing challenged Lu Chen to promote his taekwondo. Conversely, Lu Chen could also use this duel to make Chinese kung fu popular and promote the smiling, the proud wanderer. Li Ziqing wanted to use Lu Chen as a stepping stone. Lu Chen could also use him as a stepping stone. Of course, the premise was that Lu Chen won. Otherwise, it would become a joke. On this point, Lu Chen had absolute confidence. Ever since he experienced that strange dream, he persisted in practicing kung fu for the past 3 years. His body was getting stronger and his reflexes were constantly improving. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to defeat the armed former U.S. Marines on Flight UD-725. Therefore, as long as Li Ziqing was still human, he wasn't afraid of his opponent's challenge. Once he made a decision, Lu Chen's will was very firm. Although Lu Shi tried to persuade him, she could not overcome Lu Chen's persistence in the end. At 8:15 p.m. on the 30th, Lu Chen updated his blog post on his personal Waves blog, stating that he had accepted Li Ziqing's challenge. The time was to be determined, and the location was to be chosen at the Wuqing Dojo in Seoul. The Wuqing Dojo in Seoul was located in the prosperous Gangnam district. It was the core of the Wuqing School of Taekwondo. Lu Chen's choice to accept Li Ziqing's challenge in the Wuqing Dojo was no less significant than challenging the dojo. This also showed Lu Chen's strong confidence. In addition to posting the news on the Waves blog, the same content was also posted on FLOO. Since Lu Chen had been expanding into the Korean market for a long time, he had a verified account on FLOO and had more fans than Li Ziqing. Therefore, when this blog post was published, it immediately caused a sensation on the largest online communities in China and Korea. The domestic fans naturally applauded. "My Chen is mighty. Defeat the Korean, Lu Chen, I support you. Defeat Li Ziqing, my Chen will definitely win. Ha ha ha, I knew that Lu Chen would definitely accept the challenge. I was right. Don't say anything else. He's a real man. From now on, I've become a fan." Of course, there were also people who expressed concern. After all, Li Ziqing was a professional taekwondo master. How could he be easy to deal with? Due to the impact of the incident, Li Ziqing's name quickly became known by the netizens in China. Many videos about him circulated online and were seen by many people. Videos of Olympic competitions were nothing much. Even if it was a championship match, it would not leave a deep impact on people. This was because regular competitions had various rules that limited the performance of the players. It was like comparing professional boxing with Olympic boxing. The former was much more lethal. In terms of stamina and strength, professional boxing far exceeded the Olympic competition. After all, the purpose of the Olympic Games was to promote sports. In many aspects, it was inferior to professional boxing. Taekwondo, the Wuqing sect that Li Ziqing represented, was very focused on actual combat. It reduced the rules and restrictions to make the matches more exciting. His ambition was to promote the Wuqing sect to the world and establish a professional taekwondo competition that was comparable to boxing or kickboxing. There were many videos of him fighting with others on the internet. It was undoubtedly more thrilling than the Olympic competition and showed his strength. Therefore, after watching the videos, it would be too blind to say that Lu Qin would definitely win. Unlike the domestic fans or passers-by, the Korean netizens were obviously more inclined to their hero. I think Li Ziqing will win. I remember that he has never lost before. I like Lu Qin a lot. The few TV series he filmed are really good, but I also don't think he will win. Choosing to fight Li Ziqing at the Wuqing Dojo. Ha, how confident. Or should I say, arrogant. These comments were very tactful and polite. Many Korean netizens mocked Lu Qin for overestimating himself, saying that Chinese kung fu was nothing in front of Taekwondo, and so on. Some hot-blooded Li Ziqing fans who knew Chinese even went to China's Waves blog and mocked Lu Qin's blog post. Your idol is only worthy of our hero's guidance. This time, it was like poking a hornet's nest. The number of Lu Qin's fans on Waves had already exceeded 100 million. Now that he had encountered such a hot topic, how could his fans tolerate a few Korean clowns jumping around in front of them? Therefore, under the leadership of Lu Qin's fan club, countless netizens crossed the Yalu River in high spirits and made their way to Korea's FLOO. They registered a large number of IDs and stirred up trouble in Li Ziqing's FLOO comment section. The participants in this battle were not only Lu Qin's fans, but also many online volunteers. Their most powerful weapon was a unique emoji pack. Mocking emoji, contemptuous emoji, indifferent emoji, funny emoji, many of the emoji packs were made of Korean celebrities. It was like using a spear to attack a shield. They messed up Li Ziqing's FLOO as a counterattack to the Koreans' provocation. In fact, this was not the first time something like this had happened. In the past, netizens had gone overseas to debate, but the scale could not be compared to this time. Due to the influx of a large number of IDs, coupled with the fact that there were too many comments, it even caused FLOO to crash and could not return to normal for an hour or two. The Koreans, who were caught off guard, were stunned. They had never encountered such a situation before and did not know how to deal with it. The battle between Lu Qin and Li Ziqing had not been finalized, but the netizens of China and Korea had already started an unprecedented battle. Chapter 768. The online war between China and Korea did not last long. Due to the ferocity of the Chinese netizens' attacks, the number of participants was beyond imagination. FLOO's website was overwhelmed and had to block IPs from China. Many Korean netizens were unwilling to give up and went to the Waves blog to make a fuss. However, they could not do anything. On the 31st, Lu Qin received Li Ziqing's letter of challenge at the Shilla Hotel. The Taekwondo master had sent his disciple, Pu Yong-jun, to deliver the letter of challenge. Accompanying him was a reporter from Korea's MBC TV station. MBC was the second largest TV station in Korea, and Li Ziqing's intentions were clear. The letter of challenge was written in Chinese, and it was written with a brush. The calligraphy was quite good, and the strokes were vigorous and flamboyant, just like Li Ziqing himself. There was an unconcealable sharpness to it. In the letter of challenge, Li Ziqing said that he would wait for Lu Qin at the Wuqing Dojo, and the time would be decided by Lu Qin. Under the two cameras, Lu Qin calmly read the letter of challenge, then said to Li Ziqing's disciple, Pu Yong-jun, "Then let's set it for the morning after tomorrow. I'll be there at 9:00 on the 2nd. On the 2nd? Pu Yong-jun was stunned. Li Ziqing's challenge was a very serious matter, and it had caused a lot of commotion. Such a challenge should be treated with great importance. No matter what, it should take a few days to prepare, right? Lu Qin's attitude was too calm, as if he was not preparing for an important duel, but simply having a meal. Pu Yong-jun's expression became a little strange as he thought about it. Lu Qin asked, "Mr. Park, is there a problem?" Pu Yong-jun came back to his senses and looked deeply at Lu Qin. He shook his head and said, "No problem, the time and place would be decided by Lu Qin." This was promised by Li Ziqing himself, so of course, he could not make the decision on his own. However, he could not help but add, "Mr. Liu, do you really not need to prepare?" Pu Yongjun's Chinese was pretty good, and his pronunciation was perfect. That was why Li Ziqing sent him to represent Lu Qin and deliver the letter of challenge. Lu Qin smiled and said, "I think one day of preparation time is enough." Pu Yongjun couldn't help but feel angry in his heart. If it weren't for the TV reporters following him and the reputation of his mentor, he would definitely teach Lu Qin a lesson first. He had seen arrogant people, but he had never seen someone this arrogant. Pu Yongjun didn't think that Lu Qin was Li Ziqing's opponent. In his eyes, Lu Qin was a guy who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. He was destined to be stepped on by his master. "All right." He clenched his teeth and said, "My master has another suggestion, and he wants to ask for your opinion." Lu Qin said, "Go ahead." Pu Yongjun calmed down and said, "My master hopes that MBC TV station will broadcast this match live. MBC TV station is willing to pay 1.5 billion won as the winner's reward." He hoped to see a shocked look on Lu Chen's face. He believed that it would definitely be beyond Lu Chen's expectation. The key was not the 1.5 billion won reward, but the live broadcast. If it was just a duel behind closed doors, the outcome would naturally not have a big impact. But a live broadcast was a completely different matter, and it would put a lot of pressure on both sides. Li Ziqing was a two-time Olympic gold medalist. A live broadcast was not pressure for him, but motivation. It was the opposite for Lu Qin. Of course, Lu Qin could refuse, but it would mean that he would lose in momentum and confidence. A duel between masters was not only a competition of strength and speed, but also psychological quality. Li Ziqing's proposal to broadcast the duel was an open and above-board scheme. Lu Qin could only choose to agree or refuse. Regardless of whether he agreed or refused, it would be exactly what Li Ziqing wanted. The duel between the two sides had actually started when this Taekwondo master issued the challenge on FLOO. Today, sending a letter of challenge was equivalent to directly making a move. Pu Yongjun was very clear about his master's intentions, so he was full of admiration. He looked at Lu Qin with a subtle hint of mockery in his eyes. However, Pu Yongjun was soon disappointed. This was because Lu Qin was not the least bit surprised or embarrassed after listening to him. On the contrary, it was as if he had expected it. Lu Qin smiled and said, "That's fine. But since you have invited MBC TV station to do a live broadcast, we also need to invite domestic TV stations to participate in the live broadcast. Of course, we will also pay the corresponding fees." He knew that Li Ziqing's proposal to broadcast the duel live was not only to put pressure on him, but also to expand his influence. What could be better than a live broadcast on a TV station? But how could Lu Qin not be willing? Since he wanted to play, he might as well play big. Pu Yongjun was taken aback again, and immediately said, "That's fair and reasonable. I don't think there's a problem." The smile on Lu Chen's face grew wider. "That's good, but isn't 1.5 billion won too little? I think our domestic TV stations are willing to pay at least 30 million yuan for the live broadcast rights." 1.5 billion won was equivalent to less than 10 million yuan. As a live broadcast of a duel, it was a lot, but Lu Qin really didn't think much of it. Beijing Television or Zhejiang Satellite TV were absolutely willing to pay 3 or 4 times the price to win the live broadcast rights. Because he was Lu Qin, and he was worth this price. Lu Chen's teasing smile made Pu Yongjun's face burn, and even the faces of several people from MBC TV station next to him were embarrassed. Pu Yongjun actually knew the truth. MBC didn't pay 1.5 billion for this live broadcast at all. Most of it was paid by Li Ziqing himself in order to increase his influence. Anyway, he could win it back. As a result, he was ridiculed by Lu Qin. Yes, in Pu Yongjun's view, Lu Chen's words were naked ridicule. 30 million yuan, that's equivalent to 5 billion won. Pu Yongjun didn't doubt that Lu Qin was talking nonsense, because Chinese people were really rich now. Many South Korean stars and artists went to China to shoot films and TV shows, and the money they earned was more than 10 times or even dozens of times more than in China. With Lu Chen's popularity and influence in China, it was normal for rich big TV stations to be willing to pay for him. But where did Lu Chen get so much confidence? But at this time, Pu Yongjun couldn't back down. He braced himself and said, "Can you postpone the time of the competition for another 2 days? I think there are a lot of companies willing to sponsor." Lu Qin said with a smile, "Then let's change it to January 5th. Looking at his confident smile, Pu Yongjun suddenly felt that things had deviated from their predetermined track. Chapter 769. The year 2017 had already become history. On the first day of the new year, as per usual, Lu Qin updated his blog post on his Waves blog, thanking all his fans for their support and love for him in the past year, and wishing them all the best in the new year. As of 9 a.m. on January 1, 2018, Lu Chen's Waves blog had a total of 105720254 fans. With an unparalleled attitude, he was the undisputed king of popularity in the country. In 2017, his career had made great progress, and his personal wealth had increased by more than 10 times. His relationship with Qin Fei was sweet and stable, and it could be said to be a double harvest in both love and career. As a celebrity artist, Lu Qin could be said to have reached the peak of his life. However, he was not satisfied with this. The glory of the past belonged to the past, and 2018 was just the beginning of his journey. With regards to Lu Chen's New Year's wishes, the fans naturally responded like a tide. Other than the same wishes, there were two main questions that everyone was most concerned about. First, of course, was Li Shiqing's challenge. The fans were eager to know when the duel between Lu Qin and Li Shiqing would be held, and if Lu Qin had the confidence to defeat this Korean Taekwondo master. In fact, the answer to the question of confidence did not need to be guessed. If Lu Qin did not have the confidence, why would he accept Li Shiqing's challenge? Everyone simply wanted to hear Lu Chen's most resolute answer, so that the fans would have more confidence. Of course, Lu Qin would not let his fans down, and he replied to everyone's questions immediately. This duel that had caused a sensation in both China and Korea, if everything went smoothly, would be held on January 5th. At that time, it would be broadcasted live by domestic television stations and online media, so that everyone could watch. As for confidence, he was confident that he would win. The second thing that the fans were concerned about was whether Lu Qin and Qin Fei's relationship would bear fruit in 2018. The fans had good reason to be concerned. Just yesterday, December 31st, the famous actor Yang Han had announced that he had amicably broken up with his girlfriend of 7 years, Xiao Li. The news quickly made its way to the top of the search rankings. Yang Han and Xiao Li were classmates at Beijing Film Academy. The two of them had starred in many films and TV series together. They were lovers in the movies, but they were also lovers outside of it. Who knew how many times they had flaunted their love and displayed their affection on their blogs? Speaking of couples in the entertainment industry, if there was a ranking list, Lu Qin and Qin Fei would definitely be number 1, while Yang Han and Xiao Li would at least be in the top 3. Who knew how many single people would be envious of them? However, this talented and beautiful couple suddenly announced their breakup without any warning. Soon after, someone exposed the inside story of the two's relationship problems, which inevitably made people sigh deeply. In the entertainment industry, it was all too common for men and women to break up and get back together. Some fell in love, some cheated, some cheated. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it was filthy. In such an industry, Lu Chen and Chen Fei's relationship was undoubtedly a clean stream. The fans definitely didn't want to see their favorite idol, the best couple in their hearts, have a problem. Therefore, they very much hoped that their relationship would bear fruit in the new year. In this regard, Lu Chen's answer was very simple: please wait and see. And when Lu Chen interacted with his fans on his blog, the domestic TV media and online media circle exploded. Li Ziqing's challenge to Lu Chen had caused a huge commotion. It was currently the hottest topic on the internet, with a huge number of people paying attention to it. It was the real focus of the news. Now that Lu Chen said that this highly anticipated match would be broadcasted live by domestic television and online media, the question was, which television station and online media would broadcast it live? There was no news at all. Such a big news and hot topic, the unit that got the live broadcast right must have shouted it all over the world, and 100% would not hide it. Otherwise, how could it attract rich advertisers? It must be known that the time of the duel was January 5th, and there were only a few days left. So the only answer was that no television station or online platform had obtained the live broadcast right at present, and according to the past practice, such a live broadcast could only be given to one television station and one online platform. Quick hands get it, slow hands get nothing. The quickest to react was Beijing Television. Relying on the good cooperative relationship between the two sides and the geographical advantage, Beijing Television's deputy director Qin Qi took people directly to the headquarters of Qin Fei Media and bet on Lu Xi's door. Relying on the pull of "View from the Star," Beijing Television's advertising income last year doubled. Deputy Director Qin, who strongly advocated for the premier broadcast right of "View from the Star," could be said to be in limitless glory and was likely to enter CCTV to take up a new post this year. He had tasted a big sweetness, so how could he miss this opportunity and take the lead in fighting for the live broadcast right? Zhejiang Satellite TV's reaction was a little slow, but the phone was quickly called Lu Xi's mobile phone. Not only the two major satellite TV stations in Beijing and Zhejiang, Shonan TV was also interested in getting involved, and other satellite TV stations were also unwilling to be left out. They also sent people to the door or called to inquire. Compared with the major satellite TV stations competing for hegemony, there are relatively fewer competitors on online platforms, but all of them are also big shots. QQ Network, EasyNet Network, Whale TV. The key to the competition was undoubtedly QQ and Whale TV. Both of them had a good cooperative relationship with Lu Chen. The strength of QQ would definitely crush Whale TV, but Whale TV had signed an endorsement contract with Lu Chen and had an advantage. In addition to the media, many brands also came one after another, wanting to sponsor this competition. For a time, several of Lu Xi's mobile phones were blown up by people, and the phone in the office was ringing non-stop, making the customer service on duty miserable. They couldn't relax even on New Year's Day. Look at the trouble you've caused. It wasn't until noon that Lu Xi finally found the time to call Lu Chen and complained, "You had a good time in South Korea, but I didn't even have time to answer the phone. How can I solve it?" Lu Chen was visiting Jingfu Palace with Qin Fei. When he received a call from Lu Xi, he said with a smile, "Do as you see fit. Anyway, give priority to long-term partners. By the way, you have to tell the TV station that the winner will win all the live broadcast income of this competition." "If I win," he said, "except for necessary expenses, all the income will be donated to the Qin Fei Charity Fund." Lu Xi suddenly lost her temper. "I understand. No one dislikes having more money, but people are different. Some people earn more money than they can spend in several lifetimes, but they are still stingy with even a penny of charity." And Lu Chen was more willing to take out money to help those who needed help. He also gained the respect of others, the support of fans, and many things that couldn't be bought with money. Money was not the key, so Lu Xi's choice was very simple. After the two ended the call, the official V of Chin Fei media quickly released relevant news, which once again caused a heated discussion on the Waves blog. Chapter 770. Seoul's Gangnam District, Wuching Dojo. This building, which covered an area of 10 acres, was originally the residence of a high-ranking military officer stationed in Korea during the Japanese occupation of Korea. Therefore, the style was more Japanese, but it retained much of the essence of Korean houses. The white walls and black tiles were hidden in the shade of the trees, creating a unique scenery. The door of the dojo was open, and the 4 gilded Chinese characters, Wuching Dojo, were hanging under the eaves of the corridor. They shone brightly under the sunlight, and the strokes were bold and vigorous. These 4 words were personally written by Li Ziqing. He had obtained the ownership of this building 10 years ago and used it as a place where he passed down his teachings. It had also become the 10th dojo outside of the 9 major dojos and the core of the Wuching sect. 10 men dressed in traditional taekwondo uniforms lined up on the left and right, greeting the visitor in the most solemn manner. They were all very young and had the vigor and arrogance of youth. As they bowed, they stared eagerly at Lu Qin, who had crossed the threshold, with sparks dancing in their eyes. Everyone knew that this man from China, who was about the same age as them, would challenge Li Ziqing, their supreme mentor. These disciples of Li Ziqing believed that Li Ziqing would definitely win, so they hoped that they would be the ones to fight and defeat Lu Qin. Lu Qin ignored their gazes and calmly admired the exquisiteness of the Wuching Dojo. Whether it was Japan or Korea, traditional architecture had inherited and absorbed the essence of China's ancient architecture. This building, which had a history of nearly 100 years, was no exception. The layout was grand but not exquisite, and the vicissitudes of time had a unique charm. Li Ziqing was standing at the door, welcoming the arrival of Lu Qin. This Korean taekwondo master was 35 years old. He had started learning taekwondo at the age of 5 and was taught by Choi Hongxi. However, he was also Choi Hongxi's traitor and had a legendary life. Mr. Lu Qin, seeing Lu Qin, Li Ziqing bowed and said, "Welcome to the Wuching Dojo." His Mandarin was very standard, and his pronunciation was even better than the standard of many Chinese people. In fact, this taekwondo master was very respectful of the Chinese civilization. Not only could he speak fluent Mandarin, but he was also proficient in calligraphy. The surrounding Li Ziqing's disciples couldn't help but reveal surprised expressions. Li Ziqing rarely treated people with such respect, especially the younger generation. To have him take the initiative to shake their hands was already a great honor. Lu Qin bowed back and said, "Hello, Mr. Li Ziqing. Please advise me." He straightened up and met Li Ziqing's gaze. Unlike the other disciples, Li Ziqing was wearing a traditional Korean robe today. He was tall and thin, had short hair, and had a resolute expression. His eyes were bright and full of expression. With one look, one could tell that he was the kind of person with a strong will. Li Ziqing's arms were very long, and the joints on his hands were thick. His skin was rough and full of calluses. And the deepest impression that this Korean taekwondo master left on Lu Qin at first sight was his aura. He didn't show any anger, but he was dignified like a mountain, as if no force could shake him. When Lu Qin was looking through information related to Li Ziqing 2 days ago, he saw a taekwondo master's description of him in an article. It said that as an opponent standing in front of Li Ziqing, it was amazing to be able to remain calm. At that time, Lu Qin thought that it was exaggerated praise. Now that he had seen this master with his own eyes, he realized that the article was not fabricated. While Lu Qin was sizing up Li Ziqing was also sizing him up. In fact, in Korea, many people did not understand why Li Ziqing wanted to challenge Lu Qin. In their opinion, Li Ziqing was a taekwondo master, while Lu Qin was just a celebrity. The two of them were not on the same level. In Korea, the status of a celebrity was very low. However, Li Ziqing had never been a person who stuck to the old rules. Otherwise, he would not have established a faction outside of the 9 major Taoist temples and challenged the influential International Taekwondo Union. The idea of challenging Liu Qin started when he saw the video of Liu Qin demonstrating the motion capture system at the Blue Numbers studio. At that time, he realized that this was an opportunity. In order to promote the Wuqing style, Li Ziqing could be said to have racked his brains. Most importantly, he felt that Liu Qin was fully qualified to be his opponent, defeated by him. Please. Today, apart from Qin Fei, Liu Shi, who had just flown over yesterday, accompanied Liu Qin to the Wuqing martial arts dojo. In the hall of the Wuqing martial arts dojo, 7 cameras were already in place, all aimed at the ring. In addition to the reporters and cameramen of South Korea's MBC TV, there were also live broadcast personnel from Beijing Television in China. This competition, which caused a huge sensation in China and South Korea, would be broadcast live. South Korea's second-largest TV station, MBC, won the live broadcast rights of South Korea, while China's live broadcast rights were sold to Beijing Television and Zhejiang Satellite TV. After a fierce competition, Beijing Television and Zhejiang Satellite TV finally continued to join forces. The two gave 30 million yuan for this live broadcast, which was equivalent to 5 billion won as a bonus fee. The reason why it was called a bonus was that the money would be obtained by the winner of both sides. Correspondingly, South Korea provided the same amount of sponsorship money. Because MBC was under too much pressure, many South Korean companies jointly sponsored 3.5 billion won, plus MBC, it was a total of 5 billion. Among them was the Samsung Consortium. This meant that the winner between Liu Qin and Li Ziqing would not only win honor, but also a total bonus of 10 billion won. In fact, this was the result of Liu Qin's leniency and did not add other sponsorship fees. For example, the copyright of domestic online live broadcast was won by QQ Video and Whale TV, and the price has steadily exceeded 5 billion won. If Liu Qin can win the final victory, he will win at least 100 million yuan in total income. In professional boxing or kickboxing competitions in the United States, an appearance fee of tens of millions of dollars was common, and an appearance fee of hundreds of millions of dollars was not uncommon. However, in the East, whether it was Taekwondo or other martial arts competitions, the prize money of tens of billions of Korean won was unique. Some South Korean netizens on FLOO called this competition the Battle of 10 Billion, and it quickly spread to China. In the hall of the Wuqing Martial Arts Dojo, everyone's eyes were focused on the two. There were not many spectators at the scene. In addition to the media reporters and the students of the Wuqing Martial Arts Dojo, there were mainly witnesses of the competition, including an official representative of the China Embassy in South Korea. At 9:37 a.m. on January 5, Liu Qin, who had changed into a martial arts suit, and Li Ziqing, who had changed into a Taekwondo suit, stood in the ring at the same time. And the live broadcast had already begun. Chapter 771. Whale TV, Liu Qin vs. Li Ziqing, Battle of 10 Billion Live Broadcast Room. The time difference between Seoul and Beijing is 1 hour, so when Seoul is 9 a.m., Beijing is 8 a.m. January 6 was Saturday, and it was morning. Normally, there wouldn't be many online members on a live broadcast platform like Whale TV. This was because young people, whether they were office workers or students, would usually be sleeping in at this time of the day. But the live broadcast room of the Battle of 10 Billion live broadcast has been packed. Originally, Liu Qin's appointment with Li Ziqing was on January 5, but because of the needs of the live broadcast, it was postponed by 1 day, which also gave the live broadcast media more time to prepare. On the same day that Qinfei Media released the news, the senior executives of Whale TV anxiously took the nearest flight to Beijing, and put on a posture to win the live broadcast right of the duel at any cost. Of course, Whale TV's urgency was reasonable. It was through the cooperation with Lu Qin, and through a record-breaking live broadcast, that this live broadcast platform gathered a lot of popularity and successfully jumped to the top of the industry. If they missed this live broadcast, it would inevitably make people doubt whether there was a problem with the cooperation between Whale TV and Lu Qin, and the members of the platform would definitely be disappointed, which would be a great loss for Whale TV. Unsurprisingly, Whale TV's plot encountered a strong competitor, QQ Video. Under such circumstances, the CEO of Whale TV went to Beijing in person, and after hard negotiations, finally reached a win-win agreement and jointly obtained the right to live broadcast with QQ Video. After signing the contract, Whale TV immediately launched large-scale publicity, and even temporarily purchased 2 high-performance servers to provide the fluency of the live video. It turned out that Whale TV's decision was very correct. At 7:00 in the morning, more than 2 million viewers had poured into the live broadcast room of the Battle of 10 Billion Live, and by 8:00, the number had reached 5 million. If it weren't for QQ Video that diverted a lot of fans, the number of online viewers would have been much higher. Many viewers, including many fans of Lu Qin, set their alarm clocks, and then lay in the warm bed to log in and watch with their mobile phones to cheer for Lu Qin. Is it about to start? It should be starting soon. I, Chen, am already in the arena. Ah, Lu Qin looks so handsome in his training clothes. I, Chen, will win. That goes without saying. We don't need to guess the outcome. We just need to guess which round Lu Qin defeated Li Shiqing. I'm guessing it's within 10 rounds of the first round. In addition to the overflowing number of people in the live streaming room, Lu Qin's official Tieba had also gathered a large number of fans. In response to the Battle of 10 Billion, the official Tieba forum also launched a dedicated discussion section. While watching the live broadcast online or on TV, these fans were also discussing fervently in the forum. There was no lack of professionals among them, analyzing and commenting on Lu Qin and Li Shiqing from all aspects. Such professional posts often attracted a lot of discussion from fans. Compared with the one-sided optimism and support in the live streaming room, the professional analysis post was undoubtedly much calmer, because Li Shiqing's brilliant record could not be ignored, and he also had many videos, which showed the strength of this taekwondo master in all aspects. In contrast, Lu Qin's record was really much worse. He had not participated in any competition, nor had he had a formal confrontation with others. In terms of experience alone, he was far inferior to Li Shiqing. Of course, even Li Shiqing himself did not dare to underestimate Lu Qin. In an interview with the media the day before yesterday, he publicly stated that he had the confidence to win, but he was not sure of winning. Or some people said that this was Li Shiqing's modesty and caution, but Lu Qin's skill had already been shown in several sensational events, so the match was still full of suspense. What was surprising was that at around 7:30 in the morning, a large number of newly registered IDs suddenly flooded into Lu Qin's official Tieba, and they were desperately flooding the screen with posts. The IP addresses of these accounts were all from overseas, and most of the names were messy, but there were also IDs with Korean characters mixed in. The content of the posts was similar, they were all supporting Li Shiqing, mocking, and even belittling Lu Qin. Netizens who frequented Tieba were all experienced, and with one look, they understood that it was definitely the Korean netizens who rushed to cause trouble at the critical moment, or more accurately, they were looking for trouble. A few days ago, the Chinese netizens blew up FLOO, and there was a time when the server was paralyzed. In the end, the domestic IP address was blocked, and the news was reported on various major media. Now, it was normal for the Korean netizens to come and seek revenge. But the Chinese netizens were not afraid of this, and they were also on their own turf, so there was no need for the main Tieba moderator to call on them. They all picked up their bricks and smashed them, drowning all the posts in an instant. In fact, some of the posts from the Korean netizens were quite professional, and they listed various statistics to prove that Li Shiqing had an advantage over Lu Qin. Unfortunately, their efforts were in vain. After being scolded badly, someone with the ID, Park and Song KSO, angrily posted on Tiba, "You Chinese people only know how to brag, but our Korean Taekwondo is invincible. Li Zhiqing will make all of you shut your mouths." This ID was not newly registered, and it had been verified. Therefore, everyone quickly found out that this Park and Song KSO was actually a rather famous Korean Taekwondo player. He had participated in the London Olympics and won a silver medal. Currently, he had retired and was engaged in promoting Taekwondo. But although he was famous, the netizens did not care about him, and they still smashed him. But everyone was very clear that the outcome of the online debate was actually not important. The most important thing was the outcome of the actual duel. If Lu Chen won, he could naturally hang Park and Song KSO up and whip his corpse. But what if Lu Chen lost? Then everyone's support for Lu Chen might become a joke, and they could only watch the Korean flaunt his prowess. How could they tolerate it? Big numbers of posts on Tiba decreased in an instant, and everyone turned their attention to the live broadcast. Looking at Lu Chen appearing on the stage, countless people were cheering for him in their hearts. Don't lose. At this moment, Lu Chen obviously could not hear the common voice of thousands of fans. He was being checked by the referee to make sure that he did not have any illegal items on him. At the same time, Lu Chen could also feel the gaze from his opponents. It contained the confidence and desire for victory. Chapter 772. Lu Chen vs. Li Zhiqing. Li Zhiqing was the founder of the Wuching School of Taekwondo in Korea, while Lu Chen was the founder of China's Kung Fu. A duel between the two was undoubtedly unprecedented, with no precedent to follow. Therefore, the rules of this $10 billion battle were jointly determined by Lu Chen and Li Zhiqing. Generally speaking, the rules of a kickboxing professional competition were the main framework, not rigidly adhering to any fixed routines and moves. In actual combat, both sides were allowed to freely perform according to the situation of the battle, flexibly displaying various three-dimensional techniques such as punches, kicks, elbows, knees, falls, and so on. The goal was to ultimately defeat the opponent. This duel used the common 3-round system, with each round lasting 5 minutes. The rules were based on the UFC's unrestricted fighting system in the United States. For example, they were not allowed to attack vital points such as the eyes, crotch, and so on. They were not allowed to bite or tear people apart, and so on. The referees on and off the stage were also invited by the UFC to ensure the fairness of this duel. Of course, the rules were very fair, with the same restrictions and constraints on both sides. However, as the founder of the Wuching School of Taekwondo, Li Zhiqing was very familiar with the rules of this set of kickboxing and had a wealth of experience. In contrast, Lu Chen was really too lacking, as he did not have the experience of a regular match. This was also an important reason why many people did not think that he could defeat Li Zhiqing. Even if the strength of both sides were equal, Li Zhiqing could rely on his wealth of experience and rely on points to defeat Lu Chen. On the surface, Lu Chen's biggest advantage was perhaps that he was much younger than Li Zhiqing. There was no passionate speech from the live host, no cheers from the thousands of live audience, and no beautiful and sexy girls raising their cards to open the fight. With the crisp sound of a copper bell, the first round of the duel officially began. Li Zhiqing's legs and feet were close together, and his arms were naturally hanging by his sides. He clenched his fists slightly, looked at the ground, and gave a standard bow to Lu Chen. Lu Chen clenched his fists and returned the bow. The two of them straightened their backs at the same time, and their gazes collided once more, as if invisible sparks were flashing. All the spectators held their breaths as they stared fixedly at Lu Chen and Li Zhiqing, for fear of missing the slightest detail. Li Zhiqing's disciples even straightened their backs with solemn expressions. In the Whale TV live broadcast room of the Battle of 10 Billion, the originally dense barrage disappeared completely, and there was no one in the Liu Chen official tieba. Although they were confident that Liu Chen would win, when the time for the competition really came, Liu Chen's fans still couldn't help but feel their hearts in their throats as they silently cheered for him. "Hey!" The next moment, Li Ziqing bellowed and stepped forward abruptly. Within a breath, he covered a distance of 5 meters and approached Liu Chen. He waved his arm as fast as lightning and slashed at Liu Chen's neck with his right palm like a saber. This taekwondo master didn't move, but once he moved, his momentum was like thunder. The speed of his attack was so fast that it made people dumbfounded. The saber in his palm cut through the air with a breathtaking whistling sound, and the force was extremely tyrannical. Li Ziqing's greatest contribution to taekwondo was that on the basis of traditional taekwondo, he absorbed the essence of kickboxing, karate, sanzhou, and other combat techniques, which greatly improved the actual combat ability of taekwondo. Focusing on actual combat and using the most rapid speed and the most concise and powerful moves to knock down the opponent was the essence of Wuqing style. Therefore, when those non-Wuqing style taekwondo players fought with Li Ziqing according to the rules of kickboxing, they would basically collapse at the first touch and would not be able to withstand a single blow. This kind of neo-taekwondo, which focused on actual combat and sharp moves, was very much in line with the appetite of South Korean youth. Therefore, Wuqing style was unique in South Korea and developed rapidly, faintly surpassing the traditional 9 Daos. However, Li Ziqing's ambition was not to dominate South Korea, but to promote Wuqing style to the world, establish a professional competition league, and achieve the influence of AFS or UFC. Liu Chen was precisely the stepping stone that Li Ziqing chose to realize his ambition. The first move that he used on Liu Chen was born out of traditional taekwondo's virtual step hand blade, but it was very different from the standard virtual step hand blade. The attack and power were many times stronger. If this attack landed, it was possible to cut or even break Liu Chen's neck, and knocking him down would be a piece of cake. Exclamations of shock could be heard around the ring. However, Liu Chen's reaction was extremely fast. The moment Li Ziqing's hand blade slashed at him, he immediately raised his arm to block. Bam! Li Ziqing's palm slashed heavily on Liu Chen's left arm, forcing the latter's arm to press inward. When his attack missed, he instantly retracted his palm, twisted his waist, and raised his leg. His left leg kicked at Liu Chen at lightning speed. Taekwondo was famous for its unpredictable, elegant, and unrestrained leg techniques. It was called the art of kicking by the world. It had many variations and was flexible. Front kick, horizontal kick, side kick, push kick, back kick, swing kick, backspin kick, double flying kick, wind kick, and other moves were not only powerful, but also pleasing to the eye when performed. Li Ziqing's leg techniques were a big step forward from the traditional foundation. Not only was his leg fast and powerful, but it also had a great element of surprise. The combination of his previous palm blade was seamless. This palm and kick showed the strength of this new taekwondo master to the fullest. His side kick was fast and fierce. Liu Chen did not dare to face it head-on. He immediately took a big step back to defend and barely avoided his opponent's attack. However, Li Ziqing did not give Liu Chen any chance to take a breather. His left leg that missed its target suddenly landed on the ground. Using his left foot as a support point, he suddenly exerted force and jumped into the air. At the same time, he twisted his body and kicked at Liu Chen's face. A beautiful whirlwind kick. His consecutive moves were too fast. Liu Chen could not dodge in time. He could only raise his arms and cross them in front of his body. Bam! Li Ziqing's foot heavily kicked the point where Liu Chen's arms crossed, making a muffled explosion. The power of his flying kick was so strong that even Liu Chen could not resist it. He took 3 big steps back and was completely at a disadvantage. Good! Below the ring, Li Ziqing's disciples cheered. They were all beaming with joy as if victory was right in front of them. The first round had just begun. Not only did Li Ziqing take the initiative, but he also suppressed Lu Qin. 3 consecutive moves made Lu Qin only have the ability to defend and not fight back. They were very clear that once Li Ziqing took the initiative, his attacks would only become fiercer and fiercer until he completely destroyed his opponent's defense and willpower. Therefore, in the Taekwondo circle, Li Ziqing had the nickname of Tiger of Korea. They believed that under Li Ziqing's attacks, Lu Qin would not be able to withstand more than a few rounds. He would definitely be defeated. Correspondingly, Lu Qin's fans who were watching the live broadcast in front of their phones, computers, and televisions were all nervous and silent. Li Ziqing's strength was unexpected. Chapter 773. In a fight between masters, strength, speed, reflexes, skills, and other physical strength were not the only things that mattered. Momentum was imposing aura. Once one struck out with one's imposing aura in a battle, it would definitely be able to sweep away all obstacles. Li Ziqing seized the initiative to make a move at the start of the battle, and he firmly grasped this momentum, completely suppressing Lu Qin into a disadvantageous position. Even the audience who did not know Taekwondo or kickboxing could easily see that Li Ziqing's momentum was like a rainbow at that moment, and he could turn his winning momentum into a real victory at any time. In the blink of an eye, the two of them had fought for more than 10 rounds. Li Ziqing had the initiative, and he displayed his leg technique to the fullest. Whoosh! Whoosh! He strode forward and approached Lu Qin. Suddenly, he lifted his right leg to attack Lu Qin's left ribs. At the same time, he jumped with his left leg, turned right, and kicked Lu Qin's chest and abdomen with his left leg, forming an alternating attack with his left and right leg. Double flying kick. The disciples of the Wuqing dojo below the ring felt their blood boil. They could not help but cheer, and many of them were extremely excited. Double flying kick was a classic attack move in Taekwondo, but it was not easy to use it properly. Besides, the weakness of double flying kick was very obvious. The movements were simple, but there was a pattern to them. It was difficult to change the direction of the attack, and it was easy for the opponent to counter it. But when Li Ziqing used it, the moves were smooth like flowing water. The speed, strength, and timing of the attack were all on point. Lu Qin had no chance to counterattack. He could only stand in a horse stance and use his arms to block. He was forced to take another step back. And he had already retreated to the edge of the ring. There were no ropes on the edge of the ring, and it was not very high. Moreover, the edge of the ring was sloping. Once someone was knocked out of the ring, it would be very easy for them to fall to the ground. Although they would not be injured, the scene would definitely be very ugly. Also, according to the preset rules, being knocked out of the ring would count according to the number of points. It could be said that under Li Ziqing's storm-like attacks, Lu Qin was in a very disadvantageous situation. But at that moment, Lu Qin did not panic at all. After blocking Li Ziqing's double flying kick, he took the opportunity when Li Ziqing had just landed to suddenly punch Li Ziqing's face. This was Lu Qin's first counterattack since the start of the first round. Li Ziqing's attack speed could be considered to be extremely fast. He originally wanted to continuously use double flying kicks to kick Lu Qin out of the arena, but no matter how fast his kicking speed was, how could it be faster than a straight punch? The Taekwondo master decisively gave up on the attack and turned to the left side of Lu Qin with nimble steps. While avoiding Lu Qin's fist, he swung his arm again and fiercely chopped at Lu Qin's neck. Paw! Lu Qin raised his left hand in time to catch Li Ziqing's palm blade. His waist, abdomen, chest, and arms pushed forward at the same time, hitting Li Ziqing's body. Li Ziqing's body suddenly swayed, and he involuntarily took half a step back. A look of surprise flashed across his eyes as he continued to retreat, widening the distance between them. Li Ziqing was very clear about the strength of his palm blade. Not only did Lu Qin easily take it, but he also used the momentum to complete a beautiful counterattack. This move was really beyond his expectations. Through the head-on confrontation, he could feel that Lu Chen's strength was definitely not below his. This made Li Ziqing decisively give up the idea of a quick fight and become cautious. Correspondingly, his momentum was also greatly weakened, and he no longer had the upper hand. This was precisely the experience of this Taekwondo master. He was not impatient, not greedy for achievements, and did not care about temporary gains and losses. He was very free to switch between offense and defense, and he could withdraw and release his strength at will. Moreover, Li Ziqing had already calculated his move when he retreated. If Lu Qin wanted to take the opportunity to counterattack, then he would definitely give Lu Qin a big surprise. But after forcing Li Ziqing to retreat, Lu Qin did not take advantage of the victory to pursue. He only took 2 steps forward, retracted his palm, and formed a confrontation with Li Ziqing again. The sound of sighs and exhalation sounded around the ring. Of course, Li Ziqing's disciples felt very sorry. It was obvious that Li Ziqing was about to kick Lu Qin out of the ring, but he failed at the last moment. How could they not sigh? As for the people who supported Lu Qin, of course, it was a big relief. Of course, it also included the fans sitting in front of the TV, or watching the live broadcast with their mobile phones or computers. The Whale TV live broadcast room, which had been silent for a few minutes, instantly exploded. Damn, Li Ziqing is really powerful. I didn't expect it. No wonder he dared to issue a challenge to Lu Qin. He has some skills. I was worried to death just now. I was really worried that Lu Qin would be beaten out of the ring. Don't worry, I haven't fought back yet. I will definitely give the Koreans a good look later. Don't be careless. Although the fans firmly supported Lu Qin, Li Ziqing's fighting performance was also obvious to all, so people had to admit his strength. Not many people would lie with their eyes open. In less than 2 minutes, the two sides fought more than a dozen rounds. Basically, Li Ziqing was attacking and Lu Qin was defending. The former's advantage was very obvious, and the fight was thrilling and wonderful. Especially when Li Ziqing used the double flying kick, many people's hearts were in their throats. When they saw that Lu Qin held on and repelled the opponent, they were all relieved. Some fans, especially female fans, didn't want to watch anymore. It was really too exciting. In Lu Chen's official post bar, a new post appeared. Parkinching KSO posted again. I believe you have all seen that teacher Ziqing's strength is beyond doubt. He hasn't played his full strength yet, otherwise the battle would have been over. So don't take chances and admit your failure. It's not shameful. This professional Taekwondo master obviously had great confidence in Li Ziqing, and the fact seemed to prove that some of his words were not wrong, but the arrogance in his words made the fans on the post bar extremely unhappy. In an instant, the number of replies reached as many as hundreds. In addition to refuting, most of them were scolding. Parkinching KSO quickly opened another post. Vulgar words can only mean your failure. His Chinese was undoubtedly very good, and his choice of words was smooth and standard, expressing the meaning of mockery very well. This made many of Lu Chen's fans angry and helpless, because apart from cursing, it was really difficult for them to refute the other side with confidence. After all, in the ring, it was strength that spoke, not words. And just after, Parkinching KSO posted a new post, Lu Qin, who had been confronting Li Ziqing for a moment, launched a brazen attack on his opponent. Chapter 774. Since the beginning of the Battle of 10 Billion, Lu Qin had been on the defensive. However, Lu Chen's defense was not to passively take a beating, but to measure the Taekwondo master's strength, speed, and combat ability through the confrontation with Li Ziqing. Therefore, although the situation was ugly, he was actually able to defend with ease. It was only when he was about to be knocked out of the ring that Lu Chen decisively counterattacked. This made Li Ziqing, who was fighting smoothly before, suddenly sober up. He wisely returned to his original position instead of gambling and continued to attack. He adopted a more cautious posture to deal with Lu Chen. This also showed Li Ziqing's shrewdness and experience. Under such circumstances, Lu Chen's forbearance and probing no longer had any meaning. The offensive and defensive momentum of the two sides was reversed. He quickly approached Li Ziqing, raised his left arm horizontally in front of him, and clenched his right hand into a fist and punched his opponent's head like lightning. Simple, direct, and fast. This was the first time that Lu Chen used the kung fu skills that he had honed over a long period of time in public. Chi! The iron fist broke through the air and made a soul-stirring sound, which made Li Ziqing's face change involuntarily. The fist's speed was too fast. He had no time to parry, so he immediately dodged sideways and retracted his left leg, ready to sweep and kick back. However, just as Li Ziqing lifted his leg, Lu Chen's right leg suddenly swept over. Bang! The left and right legs of both sides slammed together, and the dull sound made everyone's eyelids twitch. Li Ziqing instantly retracted his leg, and the muscles in the corner of his eyes couldn't help but twitch. With a low shout, he waved his palm knife and fiercely chopped at Lu Chen, who was close at hand. Paw! His palm knife was blocked by Lu Chen's left arm, and Lu Chen's right fist almost at the same time found a gap and bombarded Li Ziqing's chest. Li Ziqing suddenly felt as if he was struck by lightning. He couldn't help but stagger back, and the horror in his heart was indescribable. Lu Chen's attack was not out of his expectations, because he had already seen through Lu Chen's patience, so he was fully prepared to let Lu Chen go all out to attack, and then look for an opportunity to counterattack while defending. But never had he imagined that Lu Chen's attacks would come so swiftly. Even more inconceivable was that Lu Chen seemed to be able to see through his every move and was always able to perfectly seal off his counterattack before giving him a heavy blow. Li Ziqing didn't believe that Lu Chen had the ability to see through his moves, nor did he believe that Lu Chen had completely seen through his moves. The only explanation was that Lu Chen's reaction was too fast, giving him the illusion that he had been seen through. At the same time, Lu Chen's combat ability had also exceeded his expectations. He did not suffer this punch unjustly. Hua! Seeing that Li Ziqing was repelled by Lu Chen's punch, all the Wuqing disciples stood up. They couldn't believe their eyes. Li Ziqing, who was the symbol of invincibility in their eyes, actually failed to successfully defend against Lu Chen's counterattack and lost unmistakably. Compared to these Li Ziqing disciples, Lu Chen's fans who were watching the live broadcast of the match finally broke out into collective cheers and applause for the first time since the start of the match. Beautiful, this punch is too beautiful. Ha ha ha, I said that Chen, will win. Now who dares to say that there is any danger? Although I don't understand it very well, it looks really powerful. Lu Chen, come on, beat Li Ziqing. Wonderful. In the Whale TV live broadcast room, it was just like a festival. Countless fans were reveling, and countless barrage and gifts were sent out. Aircraft carriers came out one after another as if they didn't cost anything. In the official Tieba, Lu Chen's supporters were even more proud and elated. One after another, they posted the post of Park Un-song KSO, asking them to admit defeat to the top and fiercely beat it. Park Un-song KSO quickly replied, "The match is not over yet." Lu Chen's fans were indeed happy a little too early. Li Ziqing only took a punch and lost points. He was not knocked out of the ring or fell to the ground. It was too optimistic to say that Lu Chen won now. But in the ring, Lu Chen really played his momentum with this wave of wonderful attacks. He quickly caught up with the retreating Li Ziqing, twisted his waist, and kicked the latter's waist and abdomen with a whip kick. A whip kick is equivalent to a horizontal kick or a spinning kick in Taekwondo. It pays particular attention to attacking the opponent by surprise. Speed is the essence. Lu Qin used a whip kick in pursuit, which was intended to oppress Li Ziqing. Li Ziqing's reaction was also very fast. In the case of not being stable, he accelerated back to avoid Lu Chen's whip kick. He immediately stopped and raised his leg to kick Lu Chen's abdomen. His counterattack was a little reluctant, but his pride and conceit did not allow him to retreat again and again. Especially in the case of a head-on confrontation with Lu Qin, the Taekwondo master showed his brave side in addition to his shrewdness. Lu Qin moved to avoid, but the momentum of the attack did not change. Block, dodge, parry, hit. In this arena, the duel between the two sides entered a white-hot state in the blink of an eye. The confrontation of fists and palms, the collision of legs and legs, the muffled sound seemed to be pounding on the hearts of the audience. 4 minutes had passed since the first round's 5-minute time limit. The confrontation between Lu Qin and Li Ziqing was getting more and more intense. The powerful collision between the two sides made the audience shudder with fear. Chen Fei and Lu Shi also stood up from their seats. They were extremely nervous. As for the audience watching the live broadcast, they focused all their attention on the screen. They widened their eyes for fear of missing any scene. The time of the match jumped to 4:25. At this time, Lu Qin and Li Ziqing had already attacked dozens of times, and the two sides were evenly matched. Li Ziqing was able to block Lu Qin's fist and took a step back. His forehead was covered in fine sweat, his face was flushed red, but his eyes flashed with a fierce and resolute light. The next moment, he suddenly took half a step forward and instantly jumped high in the air. He twisted his body in the air and prepared to kick at Lu Qin. It was the flying backward kick. Li Ziqing's flying backward kick was also improved. It was also one of his famous unique skills. During practice, he once had an amazing performance of breaking a wooden stake with one kick. It was definitely a powerful move. But at the moment when Li Ziqing kicked, Lu Qin took half a step forward. He punched both of his fists at the same time, one above and one below, and hit his waist and side crotch at lightning speed. Bang! This was a good point to fight with Lu Qin. His punches were even more decisive and fierce. His hard fists were like leather, and he hit with full force. Li Ziqing, who was in the air, could not dodge at all. His whole body spun and flew out, and he fell heavily under the ring 4 or 5 meters away. Everyone was dumbfounded. The Wuqing dojo was silent. Chapter 775. Who would have thought that Li Ziqing, who was locked in a battle with Lu Qin, would be knocked out of the ring? The Taekwondo master fell heavily on the plastic floor. He flipped over and pressed his hands on the ground to jump up. Although his movements were very beautiful, it could not hide his embarrassment of defeat. The air in the Wuqing dojo seemed to have frozen. Everyone's eyes were focused on him. A bitter smile appeared on Li Ziqing's face. He shook his head and returned to the ring. At this moment, there were only 10 seconds left before the end of the first round of the 10 billion battle. Those Wuqing disciples who were in a state of shock, bewilderment, and despair suddenly had a look of anticipation in their eyes. According to the rules of the competition, as long as Li Ziqing did not admit defeat, he could still continue. At most, he would just lose a lot of points. There were still 2 rounds left. He still had a chance to turn the tables. However, to everyone's surprise, Li Ziqing did not drag the time until the end of the first round. Instead, he solemnly bowed to Lu Qin and said, "The victory of this competition belongs to you, sir." He actually admitted defeat. There was an uproar in the audience. Lu Qin returned a fist salute and said, "He admitted defeat." Lu Qin did not expect Li Ziqing to admit defeat so cleanly. He could not help but admire him. As the saying goes, there is no first place in literature, and no second place in martial arts. As the representative of Korean Taekwondo and the founder of the Wuching style, Li Ziqing, who possessed great strength and ambition, placed great importance on this match. A martial artist like him must have a strong will and would not admit defeat easily because it concerned his dignity. It was precisely because of this that his calm attitude towards defeat was very praiseworthy. In the previous battles, this Taekwondo master's fighting spirit was impeccable. Many martial artists were very good at using the rules. When the situation was unfavorable, they liked to dodge, hold, delay, or even use foul tactics to prolong the match. This could not be said to be wrong. As long as the rules allowed it, there was no problem. Glory belonged to the final winner. Even if the situation before was ugly, the winner would never be blamed. However, Li Ziqing did not use such a move. It was impossible that he did not know it. It was just pride. A loss was a loss. There was no excuse. Lu Qin admired Li Ziqing for admitting defeat because he would have made the same choice if he were in Li Ziqing's shoes. Sparring was not a battle of life and death. Admitting that one was inferior to one's opponent was a form of courage. Of course, for Lu Chen's fans, they won't think so much. They only know one irrefutable fact, that is, Lu Qin won. The victory belonged to Lu Qin. Lu Qin defeated Li Ziqing before the end of the first round, which could be said to be a battle of tens of billions that attracted worldwide attention. All the fans who were paying attention to this match were all fired up, especially in the Whale TV live broadcast room. It was simply boiling. The barrage of messages and rewards was so great that the server was about to crash. My Qin is mighty. Victory belongs to us. Ha ha ha, I told you that Lu Qin would win. I was right. What happened just now was really amazing. Lu Chen's counterattack was simply a stroke of genius. No, it was a punch of God. I've decided. I want to learn China Kung Fu too. Strong, according to the official post-event statistics of Whale TV, in the 1 minute after Li Ziqing bowed his head to Lu Qin and admitted defeat, the number of online viewers of Battle of 10 Billion exceeded 10 million, and a total of 13 million messages were brushed, as well as rewards and gifts worth a total of 8 million plus. This record was not broken for the next 10 years, until Lu Qin stood on the podium of the Oscars. At the same time, in Lu Chen's official Tieba, in addition to the fans' crazy celebration, the beating of Park and-shin KSO became the most important theme. Everyone ridiculed and laughed to their heart's content in several of his posts. Although it was a bit unkind, wasn't it a relief? Park and-shin KSO did not respond anymore, but went offline directly, and never came online again. In addition, the comprehensive ratings of the live broadcast of the competition by Zhejiang Satellite TV and Beijing Television exceeded 15%, and the number of views of QQ video exceeded 100 million, breaking their respective records. The impact of this was very far-reaching. Many years later, when people talk about China Kung Fu or Taekwondo, this Battle of 10 Billion will always be indispensable. It also made China Kung Fu really begin to take root in people's hearts. While the domestic audience and fans were celebrating the victory, in the Wuching Martial Arts headquarters, the famous referee from the United States officially announced the result of the competition. Lu Qin defeated Li Ziqing. No one expressed any objection to this, even Li Ziqing's disciples were silent. Li Ziqing is very able to pick up and put it down. His careful planning has become a wedding dress for others. He did not show any flustered or resentful remorse, but politely invited Lu Qin to communicate in private. Lu Qin readily agreed. In an elegant room in the Wuching Martial Arts headquarters, Li Ziqing personally brewed a pot of green tea for Lu Qin and others. After drinking 2 cups of tea, the atmosphere became harmonious. The Taekwondo master suddenly said, "Mr. Lu Qin, the China Kung Fu you created is very different from traditional China martial arts, but I can see the inheritance of boxing and leg techniques from it, which is more powerful than I thought. I admire it very much. I wonder if you have the idea of promoting this powerful skill to the world." Lu Qin was stunned. He didn't expect Li Shiqing to ask such a question. Lu Chen's kung fu first came from the memories in the dream world, which belonged to Mo Ran. However, it was not enough for him to inherit it completely, but on this basis, he had his own creations and ideas. Inheritance and development, coupled with his changed talent, made Lu Chen truly powerful. Li Shiqing's eyes were very keen. As for promoting China Kung Fu, he really had such an idea. After thinking for a while, Lu Chen replied frankly, "Mr. Li Shiqing, I do have such an idea, but now is not the time, and I don't have the time to realize my intention for the time being." He was first and foremost an artist, and his acting and singing career was his foundation. Promotion Kung Fu also needed to be carried out on the basis of developing his career, so he couldn't neglect the essentials. Li Shiqing smiled slightly and said, "If the time is ripe in the future, I wonder if Mr. Lu Qin would be willing to work together with our Wuqing Martial Arts headquarters to establish a World Martial Arts Professional League competition based on Wuqing Taekwondo and China Kung Fu." World Martial Arts Professional League. Lu Qin had to admit that Li Shiqing's proposal was very tempting and constructive. Chapter 776. I think we can agree to cooperate with Li Shiqing. On the way back to the hotel after leaving the Wuqing Dojo headquarters, Lu Shi, who was in the same car, said, "He is very shrewd." Shrewd was the most suitable adjective for businessmen. It felt very inappropriate to use it on a Taekwondo master, but it turned out that Li Shiqing's shrewdness was beyond everyone's imagination. In the case of being defeated by Lu Qin, he was not frustrated, angry, regretful, or resentful. Instead, he proposed a cooperation proposal to Lu Qin that was beneficial to both sides. It was not wrong to say that he was a little shrewd. In this way, Li Shiqing turned the disadvantage into an advantage. As long as the two sides could reach an agreement, then this battle of 10 billion would become a good story, and the damage to his reputation would naturally be minimized. In addition, his ambitious ambitions would not suffer a major setback because of this. Instead, he would get a strong partner in his own camp, which would be more conducive to the expansion of his career. Of course, if Li Shiqing wanted to achieve his goal, the most important thing was to get the approval and support of Lu Qin. If Lu Qin did not agree, then his efforts would be meaningless. Because Lu Qin was the winner. He thought about it, nodded and said, "I also agree. You have to talk to him about the specific cooperation plan." Lu Qin thought about it very clearly. Li Shiqing's proposal to establish the World Martial Arts competition was a very good idea. Once it was successful, the impact would be very far-reaching and positive. This idea could be combined with his wuxia Great IP plan to produce a huge impetus. Although the addition of Wuqing Taekwondo would make things a lot more complicated, if Lu Qin did it alone, it would take a lot of time and energy. The result was completely not worth the loss. Li Shiqing had a plan, strength, and ability. He was undoubtedly the most suitable partner. For a long time, in addition to his solo acting career, Lu Qin had used the method of cooperation to expand his career, such as the crowdfunding website, such as Happy Entertainment, Star Factory Media, etc., all of which were successful. Lu Qin was already handy to achieve the sharing of common interests through cooperation. "Are you trying to tire me to death?" Lu Shi glared at him angrily. "You cause big trouble every now and then leave it alone. Even if I have 3 heads and 6 arms, I can't deal with it." Lu Qin smiled bitterly and said, "I don't want to either. Maybe we can recruit a few professional managers." His career was getting bigger and bigger. Chen Fei Media's next step would be to expand, sign more artistes, and shoot more movies and TV series. There would only be more and more things to do. However, Lu Qin did not want his sister to work day and night for this. Money could not be earned, and family was more important. While talking, the Mercedes-Benz the three of them took arrived at the main entrance of the Shilla Hotel. As a result, as soon as Lu Qin got out of the car, a large group of reporters suddenly appeared out of nowhere. They surrounded Lu Qin as fast as they could, desperately pressing the shutter of the cameras in their hands and extending the microphones in their hands to Lu Qin. Mr. Lu Qin, how do you view this victory, Li Ziqing? Some of them spoke Chinese, some of them spoke English, but most of them spoke Korean. It was a messy mix of languages. Lu Qin did not expect that there would be so many paparazzi in South Korea. They were actually waiting for him at the entrance of the hotel. He could not help but be stunned. In fact, he underestimated the influence of Li Ziqing in South Korea. When this Battle of 10 Billion was broadcast live on MBC TV, it had already caused a sensation in South Korea. As a result, Lu Qin defeated Li Ziqing in the first round, which was beyond the expectations of countless people. Many reporters arrived outside the headquarters early, but more reporters ran to the Shilla Hotel where Lu Qin stayed to follow up the interview, because the chance of waiting for Lu Qin here was much higher. Fortunately, the security personnel appeared in time and quickly separated the reporters. They escorted Lu Qin, Chen Feier, and Lu Shi back to the hotel safely. Chen Feier said worriedly, "Do you think there will be trouble? Why don't you return home earlier?" Li Ziqing was a hero in many South Koreans' hearts. Now that he had been defeated by Lu Qin, it was hard to say that there would not be some extreme fans who would do something irrational. Lu Shi supported him. "Yes, you two return home first. I'll stay here and talk to Li Ziqing." Lu Qin laughed. "It's not that scary. Also, I've agreed to SYG's invitation. I'll go back in 2 days." SYG was a famous management company in South Korea. It was through their cooperation that Lu Qin successfully expanded his career to South Korea. The cooperation between the two parties had been very pleasant. This time, when Lu Qin came to Seoul to participate in the program recording, he also took the time to visit SYG's headquarters. Then, SYG made an invitation to him, hoping that Lu Qin could guide SYG's newly formed girl group, Girl. Lu Qin naturally had to fulfill his promise since he had agreed to it. At 12:15 p.m. on January 6, Li Ziqing posted on his personal FLOO. He admitted his defeat and apologized to all his fans who had supported him. This Taekwondo master especially praised Lu Qin's strength. At the same time, he hoped to cooperate with Lu Qin and promote Wuqing-style Taekwondo and Chinese Kung Fu to the world. This was because the two had many similarities and complemented each other in many areas. 5 minutes later, Lu Qin responded to Li Ziqing on FLOO. He said that winning this victory was largely due to luck. He had many things to learn from Li Ziqing, so winning or losing was not important. He also looked forward to working with Li Ziqing. These two blog posts could be considered a perfect ending to the Battle of 10 Billion. Lu Qin's humility and sincerity won him countless good reviews and a large number of Korean fans. On the other hand, many Korean Taekwondo, karate, and kickboxing experts jumped out and proposed to challenge Lu Qin. However, they were destined to not receive any response from Lu Qin. Immediately afterward, Lu Qin posted a new blog post on Waves. First of all, he thanked his fans for their support, especially the fans of Whale TV, who gave him more than 20 million in tips and gifts. However, he would not put this money into his own pocket. After tax, he would donate all of it, along with the income from the live broadcast, to the Chin Fei Charity Foundation to help more people in need. Naturally, the fans were full of praise. The anti-fans who usually appeared in the comments from time to time had completely disappeared. This was because they could not find any fault with him at all. Trying to do so would be asking for humiliation. That night, Central TV Department 1 broadcasted the news of Lu Chen's victory over Li Ziqing in Seoul. The edited video of the battle was 15 seconds long, and it gave Lu Chen a positive evaluation. Chapter 777. Seoul's Gangnam District, Cheongtan-dong. XXX-dong, in Korea was equivalent to XXX Street, in China. Cheongtan-dong was located in Korea's most prosperous and affluent Gangnam District. The latter was also seen as the core of Korea's entertainment industry. Famous entertainment agencies such as S.M.G., TRF, REOP, and so on gathered here. Every year, large numbers of professionally trained artists would emerge from Gangnam District's Cheongtan-dong, Nongyeon-dong, Moojong-dong, and other places, providing a steady stream of new blood for Korea's entertainment industry. SYG's headquarters was in Cheongtan-dong. It was a 12-story building. SYG was not the top entertainment agency in Korea. Its power and scale could not be compared to SMG. However, it had a long history. This headquarters built in the early 90s was the best proof. When Lu Chen arrived at SYG's headquarters, SYG's president, Lee Junhao, was already waiting at the door with many senior executives. Although Lu Chen had already visited here a few days ago, SYG's reception was even higher today. There were even a few major shareholders of SYG among the welcoming crowd. Lu Chen was completely surrounded by them as he stepped into the building. It was unfortunate last time, Lee Junhao said sincerely. I was on a business trip in Thailand and could not make it back in time. So, Mr. Lu Chen, please give me a chance to make it up to me. Let's have dinner together. The last time Lu Chen was here, the president of SYG was not in Korea. It was a missed opportunity. The first thing Lee Junhao did when he returned was to extend another warm invitation to Lu Chen. Lu Chen's second visit to YG was to maintain the friendship between him and his business partners. But this time, he only brought his assistant with him. Lu Shi and Chen Fei went shopping in Myeongdong. The three of them would return to China tomorrow. The plane tickets had already been booked, so today was their last day in Korea. Lu Chen smiled. President Lee is too polite. Then, I'll accept your invitation. Lee Junhao immediately revealed a bright smile. The president of SYG was in her 30s. She had studied in China for many years, so she was proficient in Mandarin and Chinese culture. Not long after she returned to China, she took over her father's position and took charge of this entertainment management company. It was precisely because of this connection that Lee Junhao attached great importance to the China market. He had set up an office in Beijing a long time ago and actively recommended his contracted artists to expand into the domestic market. However, SYG's capabilities were limited. The few artists that they had promoted were not doing very well in China. It was only when they started working with Lu Chen that the situation changed drastically. Relying on the good cooperation with Lu Chen, many of SYG's artists participated in the filming of Full House of Romance and Autumn in My Blood. As a result, they quickly became popular in China and Korea, and brought SYG a huge source of income. Naturally, Lee Junhao attached great importance to Lu Chen. As they spoke, the group took the elevator to the 5th floor of SYG headquarters. The 3rd and 4th floors were the practice rooms for the trainees, while the 5th and 6th floors were the practice rooms and studios for the debuting artists. The trainee system of Korean entertainment management companies had been around for a long time. It was very strict, and the elimination rate of trainees was very high. Even though it was only 1 floor away, one had to put in a lot of sweat and tears to get from the 4th to the 5th floor. One also needed enough luck and talent. The Korean entertainment industry had long been a complete assembly line. There were many artists debuting every year, so the competition was extremely cruel. If they did not become popular within a year or two after debuting, they would basically be eliminated. Of course, this cruelty was not limited to artists. It was the same for entertainment management companies. Today, Li Zhenhao had warmly invited Lu Qin to visit SYG again. Of course, the main purpose was not to treat Lu Qin to a meal, but to ask him to guide SYG's recently debuted girl group, Girl. There were a total of 7 members in Girl. They were between 17 and 19 years old and were no less than 170 meters tall. All of them had trained at SYG for more than 3 years. SYG had invested a lot of resources in Girl to groom them. At the same time, they had high hopes for Girl to become one of the top girl groups in Korea and become the company's cash cow. However, dreams were beautiful, but reality was cruel. The competition in the girl groups in Korea was fierce to begin with. Girl had just debuted when SMG released Kuro, and REOP released Dawn Girls, suppressing Girl to the point where they could not even raise their heads. The market response was very cold. Of course, SYG would not be willing to fail. That was why they had tried so hard to invite Lu Qin, hoping to make use of Lu Qin's talent in music composition to make Girl shine. There were many girl groups in Korea, and there was a serious situation of homogeneity. The girl group members were all young and beautiful, and they could sing and dance. Therefore, the key was whether they had popular works or not. Whether it was Kuro or Dawn Girls, they had master-level songwriters who wrote songs for them. Their debut songs were a huge success. In comparison, Girl was much worse in this aspect. Hello, Sensei Lu Qin. In Girl's exclusive practice room, 7 young and beautiful girls were wearing tight practice skirts, revealing their slender and fair thighs. They stood in a row and bowed to greet Lu Qin. What's more, he was using perfect Chinese. Even though Lu Qin was experienced and knowledgeable, he could not help but feel a little dizzy. He quickly nodded and said, "Hello." Girl's manager who accompanied Lu Qin quickly introduced, "Sensei Lu Qin, this is Song Yinghui." The girl whose name was called stepped forward and bowed again. "Hello, Sensei Lu Qin." Song Yinghui was the leader of Girl and had the best figure in the group. She was quite bold. While greeting Lu Qin, she also cast a fiery gaze at him. In today's South Korea, Lu Qin was undoubtedly the most popular Chinese star. The number of his fans was even more than that of many of South Korea's A-list artists. The trilogy of Autumn in My Heart, Full House of Romance, and You from the Star had given Lu Qin an extraordinary position in the South Korean entertainment industry. For a new artist like Song Yinghui who had just debuted, it had a different kind of attraction. Most importantly, Lu Qin also held the key to making people famous. Lu Qin did not care too much because he had seen many female fans looking at him with similar gazes. Under the introduction of his manager, he got to know all the members of Girl one by one. It had to be said that being surrounded by so many beautiful girls and being treated as fans to their idols felt very pleasant. However, Lu Qin was not an ordinary person after all. He had enough willpower. After the introduction, he said straightforwardly, "Please perform a work." Unsurprisingly, Lu Qin's request was quickly carried out. Chapter 778. The song that Girl performed for Lu Qin was their debut single, Passion. SYG had high hopes for Girl. Of course, they would not be careless with their debut work. The lyrics and arrangement of Passion were all created by famous artists. Just the choreography alone took them nearly a month to practice. Even the filming of the music video was done with the same emphasis on perfection. Coupled with the publicity, SYG could be said to have spent a lot of money, hoping that Girl would become an instant hit. However, it was very unfortunate that Girl encountered Kuro and Dawn Girls as soon as they debuted. The result was a terrible defeat. Passion only stayed on the K-pop charts for 2 weeks before there was no news, and it was ranked last. This put SYG and Girl in an awkward position, and their subsequent promotions were greatly affected. Inviting Lu Chin could be said to be SYG's move to save girl. As the accompaniment sounded, the 7 beautiful girls danced a hot dance to the melody. Their performance was very serious, and the rhythm of their dance movements was very strong. Moreover, their cooperation with each other was very tacit, which was pleasing to the eye. In terms of dancing, the average level of Korean artists could be said to be the best in Asia, especially boy or girl groups. They often went through a long period of arduous training, and with excellent choreography, they contributed a lot to the popularity of the Korean wave. Girls' dance was also professional, and they put in 120% of their effort, which made Lu Chin secretly admire them. The rarest thing was that girl danced and sang at the same time. They were singing for real instead of lip-syncing. The 7 girls looked neat, youthful, beautiful, and had their own characteristics. They were hardworking and capable, and with the support of the company they signed with, it was reasonable to say that it would be very easy for them to become famous. However, they were really unlucky. Not only did they encounter a strong opponent, but their debut song was also lackluster. Passion had a strong rhythm and melody, and the climax was remarkable. However, there was nothing special about it, or anything that could make people addicted to it. The style was similar to many Korean pop songs. Lu Chin had a certain understanding of K-pop, so he quickly realized the problem. He fell into deep thought. After girls' performance ended, they looked at the silent Lu Chin. They couldn't help but look at each other, a little at a loss of what to do. With Lu Chin's current popularity and influence in Korea, if he was willing to recommend Girl on FLOO, Girl would definitely gain a wave of fans and even get out of her current awkward situation. However, they also knew very well that even the president of SYG, Lee Jin-ho, might not have the face to make Lu Chin put in a good word for him. Although both parties had a long and friendly cooperation, in reality, SYG relied more on Lu Chin. Now, Lu Chin's evaluation of their performance was very important. The girls nervously looked at Lu Chin, who was sitting on the chair. Their eyes were filled with anxiety and expectation. The senior members of SYG in the practice room, including Lee Jin-ho, did not speak. They were afraid that they would disturb Lu Chin's thoughts. The atmosphere in the room was heavy. After a while, Lu Chin smiled and said, "Not bad. You all danced well and sang well." Hearing Lu Chin's positive evaluation, the girls of Girl could not help but feel relieved and smiled sweetly. Lee Jin-ho smiled bitterly and said, "But this song won't do. She was beautiful, danced well, and sang well. Only the song would not do." Lee Jin-ho helped Lu Chin say what he had not said. Lu Chin smiled and said, "The song lacks some characteristics. I don't have any good guidance in terms of dancing and singing, so I'll write a song for Girl." Lu Chin wanted to write a song for Girl. Lee Jin-ho was overjoyed. She had invited Lu Chin to teach Girl because she wanted to use Lu Chin's fame to promote Girl. She did not expect Lu Chin to be willing to personally write for Girl. She knew that Lu Chin was a very talented singer and composer. He had extraordinary talent in music. However, in the past year, Lu Chin had focused on his development in the film industry and had not released a new album for some time. In addition, Lee Jin-ho also knew that Lu Chin's price for writing songs was very high. The price of a song could easily crush all the songs in Asia. It was the top tier in Europe and America. It was not that SYG could not afford it, but whether Lu Chin was willing to do it, whether his song would be suitable for Girl, and whether it would be suitable for the Korean market were all problems. Now that Lu Chin had taken the initiative to suggest it, the situation was completely different. If he did not have enough confidence or good inspiration, she believed that Lu Chin would not have said it. "That's really great." The girls of Girl were very smart. When they saw Lee Jin-ho smiling, they looked at each other and then bowed to Lu Chin in unison. "Thank you, Teacher Lu Chin." Some of them spoke Mandarin, while others spoke Korean. Their voices were crisp and cute. Lu Chen chuckled and gestured to his assistant to bring his briefcase over. Then, he took out his computer from it. For this trip to Korea, he had brought along a supercomputer that he had bought not long ago. It was installed with a few sets of commonly used composing software so that it would be convenient for him to use when he was out and about. Since he had agreed, Lu Chen simply started composing on the spot. Because Girl was currently focusing on the Korean market, he did not need to think about the lyrics and directly typed out the music score. His fingers flew across the keyboard, and in just a few minutes, he had finished writing a song. The surrounding senior management of SYG were all dumbfounded. They felt that Lu Chen's songwriting was like child's play. All he had to do was type a few times on the keyboard and he could even sell a song for 10 to 20 million won. For such custom-made works, the composer often had to spend a week or two or even more to prepare. They had to rack their brains to find inspiration, and then fill in the inspiration. Finally, the final product had to be revised repeatedly. They were all suspicious that Lu Chen was just brushing them off. Did he think that it would be fine if he just casually passed it to them? Lu Chen did not care what they were thinking. He asked Li Jinhao if he could borrow the help of a few professionals to complete the first version of the song. It was not the first time he had done such a thing, and he did not care if it was shocking. Li Jinhao could not believe it either, but she immediately complied with Lu Chen's request. Therefore, Lu Chen borrowed SYG's staff and equipment and spent about 2 hours to turn this song that was tailor-made for Girl into a finished product. Of course, due to the limited time, the content and details of the arrangement could not be very rich. However, the basic melody, rhythm, timbre, and so on were all there. If he added in the lyrics, it would be a complete work. After it was completed, Lu Chen played the final product in the testing room. Many of the senior management of SYG, including Li Jinhao, as well as the 7 girls from Girl, listened to this work that only had background music. After listening to it, everyone's expressions were colorful. Chapter 779. In the eyes of many of SYG's senior management, what they had seen today was an absolute miracle. God said let there be light, and so there was light. Lu Chen said he would write a song for Girl, and so he did. Although it was a work without lyrics, the quality was so high that it was hard to believe that it was composed in a few minutes. The melody of the song was very light, and the unique rhythm had a strong toxicity. Just hearing it once would make one hum a few lines. It had a magical power that made people listen to it again and again. These SYG executives were not idle people. Their appreciation of pop music was not bad, and some were even professionals. That was why they were so shocked. With this song, as long as it was matched with lyrics and choreography, it would not be a dream for Girl to make a comeback. In the Korean pop music scene, there were many examples of people becoming famous overnight because of one song. It was not a myth for a few classic songs to support a popular girl group. Especially in the current situation where Korean pop music was highly homogenized and the audience was tired of it, they knew all too well the power of a good song. The girls of Girl looked at Lu Chen with stars in their eyes, each of them full of joy and admiration. The girls' love for this work came from the bottom of their hearts. The melody and rhythm hit their hearts, and they could not wait to try it out. Ever since their debut, they had been under a lot of pressure. The response to their debut single was mediocre. Faced with strong competitors, although they worked hard, they could not achieve success. At this moment, to them, Lu Chen was like an angel who had descended to the mortal world to save them from their suffering. The girls' burning gazes made Lu Chen feel a little overwhelmed. He coughed twice and said, "That's it for now. Get someone else to write the lyrics, and the arrangement needs to be perfected." Li Jinhao hurriedly said, "Thank you so much. You've worked hard. I will get someone to draft the copyright transfer contract. Please rest assured." The president of SYG only had one thought in her mind, and that was to sign the contract as soon as possible. She would never forgive herself if she missed this song. Most importantly, with one song, there would naturally be a second song. With the support of a talented musical genius like Lu Qin, would girl be afraid of not being able to beat Kuro and Dawn Maiden? Therefore, she didn't care about the cost at all. No matter how much Lu Qin asked, she would agree unconditionally. Lu Qin smiled and said, "You can discuss the contract with Lu Shi." Li Jinhao thought of something and said, "Mr. Lu Qin, what's the name of this song?" Although Lu Qin had asked SYG to add their own lyrics, Li Jinhao still hoped that Lu Qin could give the work a name. This was very important. Lu Qin smiled and said, "Just call her Ji." Ji. Li Jinhao's eyes lit up and he nodded thoughtfully. Very good title. Lu Qin smiled but said nothing. Ji meant surprise in Korean. In the dream world, this song, Ji, was originally one of the representative works of a very famous Korean girl group. It had been popular for a time and won many awards. It had extraordinary magic. The sky had darkened by the time the audition ended. At night, Li Jinhao invited Lu Qin to a banquet at the famous Hanjiang Hotel. Girl and many of the higher-ups of SYG accompanied them and were very attentive. Lu Qin rarely drank, but he couldn't resist the enthusiasm of the girls and girl. He drank a bottle of traditional Korean wine, bamboo charcoal, and was a little tipsy in the end. Li Jinhao also drank a few glasses of wine. She smiled and said, "Mr. Lu Qin, I think you're a little drunk. Let Inghui send you upstairs to rest. I've already booked a room here." As she spoke, she gave Song Inghui, who was sitting beside Lu Qin, a look. Song Inghui was the leader of girl. Her overall quality was the best among the 7 girls. Her appearance wasn't top-notch, but her figure was outstanding, especially her pair of long legs. Seeing Li Jinhao's hint, Song Inghui immediately understood and held on to Lu Qin's arm. Her bouncy breasts pressed tightly against his arm and said sweetly, "Teacher Lu Qin, let me send you upstairs." To be honest, such a youthful and beautiful girl with a soft voice and exotic charm was a great temptation for Lu Qin. Moreover, Li Jinhao's hint was quite obvious. However, Lu Qin was not drunk. He smiled and said, "Thank you for your warm hospitality, President, but I won't be staying here tonight. My girlfriend is still waiting for me in the hotel." His tone was gentle, but his will was very firm. Li Jinhao was stunned, then smiled and said, "All right then, I'll get someone to send you back." Politely declining Li Jinhao's good intentions, and ignoring Song Inghui's resentment, Lu Qin and his assistant took the car sent by SYG back to Hotel Shilla. This bunch of Koreans. In the car, Zhang Xiaofang, the assistant who had followed Lu Qin to Korea, said, "So many tricks." The Korean drinking culture was also very popular. The senior management of SYG were very good at persuading people to drink. If not for Zhang Xiaofang's help that night, Lu Qin would probably be lying on the floor. But what Zhang Xiaofang said was not just that. Lu Qin laughed involuntarily. He had long heard of the unspoken rules in the Korean entertainment industry, but he did not expect it to happen to him. It was just that Li Jinhao's honey trap was really playing with the wrong target. Unlike those artists who became unscrupulous after becoming famous, Lu Qin had always kept his bottom line in the huge entertainment industry. The more famous he was, the more careful he was with his words and actions. It was actually very easy for a person to fall into depravity. It was very difficult to stay clean in the entertainment industry that was filled with countless temptations, but he had his own persistence. Therefore, even if Qin Fei was not here in Korea, Lu Qin would not be tempted by Song Inghui. Back in the room, Qin Fei was sitting in the living room chatting with Lu Shi. There were bags of various sizes on the carpet in the living room. It looked like they had gained a lot today. Seeing the drunken Lu Chen return, Chen Fei hurriedly got up to support him. Lu, she said angrily, why did you drink so much? It stinks. Lu Chen smiled bitterly. I didn't want to drink too much. The people from SYG were really too passionate. I really couldn't handle it. Luckily, Brother Zhang was here. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to come back tonight. He had a lingering fear just thinking about it. If he had been drunk and completely sinned, it would be hard to say what would have happened next. Of course, Li Zhenhao did not have any ill intentions towards him, but her good intentions were even more unbearable. Chen Fei laughed. Is it because you have a beautiful girl with you that you can't bear to come back? Lu Chen laughed. Hurry up and take a bath. Otherwise, it would be hard to explain. On the 8th of January, Lu Chen ended his trip to Korea and returned to Beijing with Chen Fei, Lu Shi, and the rest. Chapter 780. When Lu Chen returned to Beijing, the first snow of the new year had just fallen in the capital. The snow was so heavy that the flight from Seoul to Beijing was delayed for more than 5 hours. Therefore, when they arrived at Beijing International Airport, it was already past 11:00 in the evening. What surprised Lu Chen was that there were still a large number of fans in the terminal to pick him up when the flight was delayed for such a long time. Seeing Lu Chen and others coming out of the passenger passage, these fans immediately let out earth-shattering cheers. They held up various posters, support signs, flowers, gifts, and so on. The scene was quite amazing. For the current Lu Chen, it was normal to meet fans or reporters who came to pick him up at the airport. Because his popularity was so high, there was no need to arrange professional fans at all. There were still a lot of real fans to support him. It was said that the airline company specialized in selling the flight information of celebrity artists to the fan groups, so the fans could know the movements of their idols at any time and surround the airport. In this regard, Lu Chen had long been used to it. But today, it snowed for a day, the plane was delayed for such a long time, and so many fans waited for his return. It really made him very touched and even embarrassed. Thank you. Lu Chen took the flowers and gifts from the hands of 2 female fans and smiled to express his gratitude. Several female fans who squeezed to the front were so excited that their faces were red. The people behind them tightly surrounded them, causing chaos at the scene. Fortunately, the airport arranged enough personnel to maintain order. According to the usual practice, Lu Chen should speed up and leave. The car to pick him up was already waiting outside. But today's situation was really special. He really couldn't leave the fans who had waited for him for such a long time, so he took the initiative to take the crowd to the side and signed autographs and took photos for these fans one by one. Of course, the fans were overjoyed and spontaneously lined up with good manners. Their hard waiting was finally not in vain. Not only could they get Lu Chen's autograph, but they also got Chen Fei's. It was a great deal. Lu Chen signed a fan's autograph and asked, "Now that the subway has stopped, how are you going to go back?" The fan replied, "My friend and I are going to take a taxi back." Take a taxi? Lu Chen could not help but frown. It was already very late, and the most convenient and fast subway was already out of service. There were definitely taxis at the airport, but it was probably very difficult to get one due to the snow, and there were so many fans. He immediately said to Lu Shi, "Sister, can you call and ask if you can get a few cars to send them back?" Lu Shi nodded and immediately called the bus. She helped Lu Chen manage the studio and Chenfei Media and built up a considerable network in the capital. This was naturally not a problem for her. It only took a few minutes for Lu Shi to contact a car. She relied on her relationship with Beijing Television. When the fans heard that Lu Chen had specially arranged a bus for them to go back, there was no need to mention how considerate and moved they were. They posted photos in their respective blogs and circles of friends, and all of them were very happy. Do you have an idol that warms your heart? When other fans saw this, they all expressed their envy and jealousy. Some even said that they would rush to the airport immediately. After this torment, when Lu Chen and Chen Fei returned home, it was already past 1 o'clock in the morning. Both of them were exhausted to death. After a simple wash, they went to bed and slept until dawn. The next day, Lu Chen and Chen Fei rushed to the headquarters of Central TV together. The two of them were here to participate in the first official rehearsal of the 2018 Spring Festival Gala. Central TV's rehearsal was different from ordinary galas. Ordinary galas had loose requirements for the participating stars. Usually, the stars did not need to participate in the rehearsal, or only needed to participate once. However, Central TV was different. No matter how big the stars were, they had to participate in the official rehearsal to be selected for the Spring Festival Gala. Unless there was a special reason, they could not ask for leave. If they could not accept this rule, then they could forget about this stage that was watched by millions of people. In the past, the Spring Festival Gala was actually not so strict, especially when it came to Hong Kong and Taiwanese stars. However, in recent years, this rule had been implemented very well, and there had been stars who were kicked out because of this. For this year's Spring Festival Gala, Lu Chen and Chen Fei both had performances, so the first rehearsal was definitely not to be missed. It was not that the two of them valued the Spring Festival Gala very much, but there was no need to break the rules. Therefore, they still took it very seriously and rushed over more than an hour in advance. The Spring Festival Gala's rehearsal was held in Central TV's Broadcasting Studio 1. When the two of them entered, they went through multiple security checks. In order to prevent the surging social media and internet celebrities from entering the Spring Festival Gala's rehearsal site to secretly take pictures and leak the contents of the Spring Festival Gala, Central TV's confidentiality of the first rehearsal could be said to be airtight. All bags and mobile phones of the audience were not allowed inside, and there were also strict rules for reporters and entertainers. When the two of them appeared backstage in the broadcasting studio, it immediately attracted the attention of countless people. Recently, in terms of the limelight, no one in the domestic entertainment industry could compare to Lu Chen, especially since he had just defeated Taekwondo master Lee Zhiqing in South Korea. The media was abuzz and he was almost put on a pedestal. It really makes people not convinced. Lu Chen has the height, the appearance, the talent, the ability to write and fight, and the skill is extraordinary. He is simply the perfect big star. Whether it was out of sincerity or insincerity, regardless of whether they were friends or not, the celebrities who were already waiting backstage all greeted Lu Chen and Chen Fei with a smile or warmly. Among them, there were also friends of the two, such as Lu Gangxing, Tan Hong, etc. In addition to these two evergreen trees in the industry, there were also many big stars and emerging artists. It could be said that the stars were shining. Lu Gangxing, like Chen Fei, was participating in the Spring Festival Gala for the third time this year. He flew to Beijing a few days ago. Now that they saw Lu Chen, everyone was naturally happy to be reunited after a long time. Tan Hong had originally retired from the music industry, but because of the invitation of the great director, Chen Guoji, he also came. However, he would not be appearing alone, but participating in a singing program with a group of stars. And the song for the chorus was written by Lu Chen. Tan Hong opened his arms and gave him a strong hug. He praised, "You have won glory for the country. Come to my house for dinner tonight. Your sister-in-law said that she wants to welcome a hero." Lu Chen laughed and said, "How can I be considered a hero? Thank you so much, sister-in-law." As the two of them were chatting and laughing, Chen Guoji appeared backstage. The first official rehearsal for the Spring Festival Gala was about to begin. Chapter 781. According to previous year's practices, a spring festival gala usually had 4.5 hours of content. And rehearsals lasted even longer. No matter how big the names were, even after they finished rehearsing, they could not leave immediately. This was because they still had to analyze and judge the effects of the program, so they often had to stay for more than half a day. Lunch was provided by Central TV. Whether it was celebrities, guest artists, extras, or staff, they all ate boxed lunches, and the quality of the lunches was the same. Of course, celebrities who were not used to eating boxed lunches could prepare their own meals, but basically no one would do that. Lu Chen and Chen Feier were no exception. They received their own boxed lunches during the lunch break. Even though Central TV's boxed lunches were the standard price of 58 yuan, there were countless people in the industry who wanted to eat this boxed lunches. Every year, celebrities, big or small, racked their brains to get in, but only a few succeeded. This was the first time Lu Chen had eaten a boxed lunchbox from Central TV. All the meat is for you. Chen Feier picked out the beef from the lunchbox and put it into Lu Chen's lunchbox. I weighed it this morning, and it's half a caddy heavier. I want to lose 1 caddy. Lu Chen did not know whether to laugh or cry. You still need to lose. Not eating meat is not good for your health. Chen Feier picked up the last piece of meat with his chopsticks and stuffed it into his mouth. I know what I'm doing. Stop nagging. Lu Chen's mouth was stuffed with meat. He shook his head speechlessly. Then, he picked up his own radish strips and broccoli for Chen Feier. The two of them hid in a corner and were lovey-dovey. But the others who saw them felt suffocated, especially those single dogs, who were fed a big mouthful of dog food. Moreover, he kept on feeding them until someone stood up fearlessly. Cough, cough. A loud cough forced Lu Chen to stop his inhumane public display of affection. He turned his head and was almost blinded. What a big bald head. Ah! Lu Chen quickly stood up and greeted politely, Hello, Teacher Gao. There were 3 famous baldies in the entertainment industry. They were all big shots in their respective industries. One was a pop singer, one was a movie actor, and the last one was the skit artist in front of them, Gao Dishing. He had a big bald head, squinting eyes, a bulbous nose, thick lips. The way he smiled had a charm that made people laugh. This was a face that everyone in the country was very familiar with. It was an ugly face that had a unique personality. But Gao Dishing did not live up to the name of an artist because of other people's flattery, but because of the reputation he had accumulated in his more than 20 years of acting career. He was a senior who truly excelled in both virtue and skill. Disregarding everything else, just the Spring Festival Gala alone, he had participated in it 7 times. This year would be his 8th. Chen Feier did not dare to neglect this senior in the industry. He quickly put down the lunchbox and stood up to greet him. Gao Dishing smiled and said, Take a seat. I'm just here to have a chat. Sorry for disturbing you. Lu Chen and Chen Feier were a little embarrassed. Lu Chen quickly said, Not at all. We just finished eating. Gao Dishing sat down with a smile and said to him, Actually, I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time. It's just that the timing was not right. Today, I finally got the chance. Gao Dishing took the initiative to find Lu Chen. He wanted to talk to Lu Chen about the skit script written by Lu Chen. At that time, the executive director of this year's Spring Festival Gala, Chen Guizhi, found Lu Chen and invited Lu Chen to participate in the Spring Festival Gala of the Year of the Dog. As a result, Lu Chen took out 2 original works and a skit script and threw them to the great director. Chen Guizhi originally expected Lu Chen to come up with a good program. He did not expect Lu Chen to come up with 3, and all of them were excellent, which made him unable to give them up. However, it was not easy for Chen Guizhi to put all 3 programs on the Spring Festival Gala. First of all, he did not have the final say in the Spring Festival Gala. He had to face all kinds of interests, so it was impossible for him to do as he pleased. But in the end, Chen Guizhi still eliminated the difficulties and pushed Lu Chen's works as the focus of the program. For this reason, he specially invited many big names to ensure the effect of the program. For example, Chen Guizhi gave the skit written by Lu Chen to Gao Dixing. The latter's image not only matched the setting of the characters in the script, but his acting skills were enough to crush a lot of his peers. It should be known that Lu Chen's skit had squeezed out another program of the same kind that had already been selected. No one said it openly, but there were a lot of people talking about it behind it. God knew how many pairs of eyes were watching it. Gao Dixing and Chen Guizhi had been friends for many years, so he understood the weight of it. Out of a serious and responsible attitude towards work, he took the initiative to talk to the original author, Lu Chen, during the lunch break. It sounded like a very normal thing. There was nothing to fuss about when actors and scriptwriters communicated. But in fact, many actors nowadays did not care about the author at all. You just had to write the script, and how you acted was up to me. There was no need for you to tell me what to do. That was the director's job. In fact, many celebrity artists did not even listen to the director's words and often acted on their own. Gao Dixing was a big name in the industry. When he appeared on the stage of the Spring Festival Gala, Lu Chen was still running around naked. Moreover, no matter how famous Lu Chen was, they were not on the same level as him. He did not need to care about Lu Chen at all. But Gao Dixing used a very equal and even humble attitude to communicate with Lu Chen about the creative intention, plot idea, spiritual connotation, and so on of the work. Lu Chen naturally told him everything he knew. And when it came to analyzing the work, he felt that he was not as good as Gao Dixing. This made Lu Chen feel rather ashamed. After all, the source of his work was his memories from the dream world. The exchange between the two of them lasted for more than an hour until the staff assistant came over to remind him. Gao Dixing said to Lu Chen, "This is the best script I've received in the past 10 years. Lu Chen, I really hope that you can create a few more scripts. We're really lacking good scripts right now." Gao Dixing was speaking from the bottom of his heart. In recent years, the viewership ratings of Central TV's Spring Festival Gala had been declining year by year. The audience's evaluation of language shows was getting worse and worse, and he was feeling anxious about it. The script that Lu Chen had brought out really made Gao Dixing feel like he had finally met a good rain after a long drought. Lu Chen nodded and said, "Teacher Gao, I'll do my best." Gao Dixing smiled in relief. "Thank you." This word of thanks was not only for himself, but also for the entire skit industry. The afternoon rehearsal did not end until 4 p.m., but Lu Chen was not able to leave early, because a director from Central TV personally came over to invite him for a discussion. And the content of the discussion was about the martial arts movie, The Smiling, Proud Wanderer, that Chinfei Media would start shooting after the Spring Festival. Chapter 782. Many people didn't know that CCTV also made movies. It had a professional film production department, shooting more than a dozen movies every year. Whether in terms of scale, strength or output, it was not inferior to a large movie company. However, CCTV's movies were mainly documentaries, followed by self-produced dramas. They were not broadcasted in cinemas, but on their own movie channel. At the same time, they were sold overseas. In recent years, CCTV's film department began to set foot in the field of commercial movies. They had participated in the shooting and production of many commercial blockbusters and achieved quite good results. Of course, from the point of view of a commercial movie company, it was undoubtedly a good thing to be able to cooperate with CCTV. CCTV's strength was beyond doubt. Its publicity and promotion ability were unparalleled, and its production and shooting standards were among the best in the country. However, CCTV's brand was too big, and they were very picky. Not everyone was qualified to cooperate with them. Lu Qin had been in the film and television industry for a long time, so he naturally knew some inside stories. Therefore, when the director of CCTV's film production department, Dong Fanghao, personally came to him to discuss the cooperation of the smiling, proud wanderer, he was more or less a little surprised. Our department became independent at the end of last year. Dong Fanghao was in his 40s. He was handsome and well-dressed, a typical successful man. He didn't have much of the temperament of a person in the system. He was more like an elite in the business world. In response to Lu Chen's doubts, he smiled and explained, a new video company has been set up to engage in the shooting, production and promotion of movies. Although it is still under CCTV, it is responsible for its own profits and losses. Lu Chen was suddenly enlightened. Naturally, he was very clear about Dong Fanghao's purpose. New Video was like a son of CCTV's boss. No, to be more accurate, it was a grandson, and it was one of them. Originally, he had been raised in the big house with good food and drinks, but now he had set up his own company. It was definitely not a bad thing to set up an independent company. It meant that he would have more autonomy. However, although they were still related by blood, the boss did not care about his grandson's food and drink. In the future, the grandson would have to rely on himself. Dong Fanghao was also the general manager of New Video. He had a large number of people under him. How could he not worry? Under the circumstances that they couldn't completely rely on CCTV, New Video naturally couldn't do anything. Taking the initiative to find business opportunities and expand the market was their way of survival. Even so, the background of the new movie was something that no one could ignore. Lu Chen couldn't help but be interested. He thought for a while and said, Director Dong, I'm very happy to cooperate with New Video. But at present, the smiling, the proud swordsman already has many partners, so I'm afraid we need to sit down and discuss the specific cooperation plan. After Chinfei Media released the news that they were going to shoot the smiling, proud wanderer, many people came to their door. In addition to the existing partners, all the major domestic film companies and cinemas basically expressed their interest in cooperating with them. Not to mention the people in the circle, there were also a lot of people outside the circle waving money and breaking the threshold. Because of the great influence of the smiling, the proud martial artist in China, it had created a large number of fans of new wuxia novels. With the marketing and promotion of Chinfei Media, it had become a popular IP with great market potential. The most important thing was that Lu Chen and Chinfei were both going to act in the smiling, the proud wanderer, and Chen Guoji was the director. With these three big shots, it would be hard for them to make a loss unless they made a mess. Has Chinfei Media ever done any unprofitable business? The answer was obviously no. Therefore, it was normal for New Video to want to get involved. Lu Chen also welcomed it. It didn't matter who he wanted to cooperate with. The key was whether it could bring profits. New Video had enough qualifications, but the premise was that they couldn't be too greedy. Lu Chen also had to take care of the interests of all sides. It had only been more than 3 years since his debut. Lu Chen had grown from a nobody in an underground house to a top star with more than 1 billion assets. In addition to the wealth of memories from the dream world, he also understood the principle of, a just cause enjoys abundant support, while an unjust cause finds little support. He was willing to give up the immediate benefits in exchange for long-term development. People who liked to eat alone were not welcomed anywhere. But knowing how to share benefits didn't mean that he didn't have his own persistence and bottom line. Lu Chen had always done well in this aspect. Dong Fanghao said seriously, of course. I came here today mainly to meet you, Mr. Liu. We will have many opportunities to cooperate in the future. Even if we don't succeed this time, there will be next time. Lu Chen smiled and said, Thank you for your understanding, Director Dong. The two looked at each other and smiled. Dong Fanghao stood up and was ready to leave because Lu Chen was here for rehearsal today. Lu Chen's expression changed. He wanted to say something, but he hesitated. He didn't expect Dong Fanghao to be so sensitive. He immediately smiled and asked, "Mr. Lu, what do you want to say?" He sat down again and said, "As long as I can help, I'm fine with it." Lu Chen was hesitating whether to say it or not. Seeing Dong Fanghao's attitude, he simply said it. "I have an idea." As he said this, he asked his assistant to bring a tablet and opened the document stored in it for Dong Fanghao to see. Lu Chen's idea didn't come up for a long time. It appeared during his martial arts competition with Li Ziqing in South Korea. That was to hold a large-scale casting event for the movie, The Smiling, Proud Wanderer. The form of the casting event was based on the popular reality TV shows, and the selected targets were young people who had practiced martial arts, such as traditional martial arts, sanda, kickboxing, taekwondo, judo, etc. The purpose was to select the outstanding people from them to participate in the movie, The Smiling, Proud Wanderer, TV series, and the shooting and production of the future wuxia IP. Lu Chen's preparation for the wuxia IP plan began very early. The Lu family squad was one of the teams he created for this plan. However, the current number of members in the Lu family squad was not large. It was not enough to shoot a wuxia movie. If it was shooting a long TV series, it would be even worse. Therefore, the expansion of the Lu family class was imperative, and holding a casting event was undoubtedly the most convenient and fast way to select excellent talents. Originally, Lu Chen planned to cooperate with Beijing Television, but today he met Dong Fanghao. He wondered if he could cooperate with Central TV to produce this talent show. Because whether it was strength or influence, Central TV could easily crush Beijing Television. Because the movie was about to start shooting, he didn't leave too much time for this event, so he needed a strong partner to solve many problems. If Central TV was interested, then it would undoubtedly be the best choice. As for this movie casting activity, Lu Chen named its theme, "The Storms of the Eight Directions Will Meet in the Capital." You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.